If you're here to relax, get cozy, and let your thoughts float softly over the world's hidden spots as you slip into sleep, you found the perfect spot. Tonight, our adventure leads us to a secret realm, places shaped not by flames or frost, but by the slow touch of water on rock. These are spots of quiet and mystery, where streams disappear into the earth, caves spread like huge halls in the shadows, and tall stone pillars stand like lost statues. Before we start, I'd love to hear where in the world you're listening from tonight. It's always fun to picture the little map that builds in the comments. If this story helps you unwind, I'd be so thankful if you gave it a thumbs up and join for more peaceful trips into the ground. And to those of you already with us, thank you for helping this little space of calm wonder grow. I hope this tale isn't so exciting that it keeps you up, but if it does, at least you'll fall asleep with dreams full of caves, streams, and odd stone woods. There are nicer things to dream of. So, what are these quiet places under our feet? And why have they sparked wonder and legend since the first people walked the earth? To get it, we have to start with the slowest artist on our planet. Water looks soft, kind, and quick to pass. But over many, many years, it changes mountains, digs out valleys, and even builds whole worlds below ground. Where limestone touches rain, and where time goes on forever, the earth's top gets filled with hidden rooms, secret paths, and holes that drop like surprise doors to the deep. These places aren't odd rarities hidden in distant lands. They cover nearly 1 in 10 parts of the Earth's dry ground and give clean water to hundreds of millions of folks. But even with their big role, they stay oddly hard to spot. Most of their splendor hides away under woods, fields, or wide grassy plains. They're places that make us wonder what's right under our toes. But this isn't just a rock tale. It's also about living things, like fish without eyes that swim in pure dark, bats that whirl through big spaces, and people who long ago drew pictures, whispered prayers, and laid their loved ones to rest in the echoes of dripping rock. It's a tale of risk, too, of homes pulled into sinkholes, wells tainted by unseen flows, and growers who get used to thin, tough dirt. At the same time, these spots are full of magic. The sparkling hang-down stones and rock drapes in huge caves look like castles no builder could make. Tall limestone posts poking up from foggy valleys have stirred artists, singers of words, and tale spinners for ages. And in many ways of life, these places turned into settings for stories of worlds below, doors to lands of gods, ghosts, and old family spirits. In this adventure, we'll stroll slowly through these rocky mazes and quiet stone groves. We'll follow one raindrop as it turns into a river underground, peek into big caves that once hid whole groups of people, and think about the tender balance that makes these places both lovely and shaky. So as you let yourself float away, picture this. If so much of the earth hides unseen below us, what other secret spots might the world be keeping quiet? When we talk about landscapes, most folks think of soft hills, high peaks, or big rivers twisting through low spots. But there's another kind of land that's less easy to see, often tucked away and formed not by wild bursts or ice sheets, but by the steady nudge of water wearing down rock. This is karst, a word that might seem new, though the things it means are some of the most thrilling and puzzling on our planet. The name comes from an area between Italy and Slovenia, where limestone rules the ground and has grabbed the attention of earth explorers for a long time. Over the years, the word karst grew to mean any spot where rocks like limestone, gypsum, or dolomite that can melt away have been shaped by water into fancy patterns. Picture a place where rivers drop suddenly into the ground, where sinkholes appear in a night, and where caves underground go on for miles in echoing quiet. That's the heart of Karst. Unlike most lands, defined by what's on top, Karst is just as much about what's below. Its real self is hidden deep. Rainwater, a bit sour from mixing with air's fizz and dirt's bits, slips into cracks in limestone. Over hundreds of years, that tiny sourness melts the rock bit by bit, turning cracks into gaps, gaps into tunnels, and tunnels into huge rooms. What starts as unseen mixing soon shapes whole stone worlds. One surprising thing about karst places is how they surprise you. A top that looks flat and steady might hide mazes of empty rock below. Wells can go dry fast because water finds a new path underground. Whole creeks can vanish, diving into the earth, only to pop up as strong springs far off. Growers on karst dirt often say their fields are full of tricks, though the tricks can be scary as well as fun. Sinkholes are maybe the best-known sign of karst. These dips, from a few steps wide to huge pits big enough to eat buildings, happen when the top of an underground empty spot falls in. In Florida, a home once fell into a sinkhole that opened under a bedroom. In China, massive dolines, sinkholes so big they look like natural stages, can be hundreds of steps deep with their own little weather and tiny woods at the bottom. They show us that karst is as bold as it is sneaky. But karst isn't just about falls and empty spots. It's also about making things. Inside caves, the slow drip of water full of minerals builds stalactites and stalagmites. These shapes, growing only a few finger widths every 100 years, dress cave tops and bottoms like stopped waterfalls or upside-down stone trees. In some caves, whole rooms are covered with thin sheets of calcite that glow in light as if nature had made a palace from glass. Beyond caves and sinkholes, karst makes lovely sights on top. In southern China's Guangxi area, pointy limestone towers poke up sharply from green valleys, making the views of Guilin that have sparked countless singers of words and painters. In Madagascar, the Singi shows a grove of knife-like limestone points, so thick that walking there feels like crossing a turned-to-stone ocean. These top shapes are as much karst as the secret streams below, showing that this kind of land is both inward and outward, underground and up to the sky. Karst is also marked by its water. Unlike rivers that flow openly across flat spots or hills, karst waters often disappear into swallow holes and come back far away as springs. This makes karst waterways confusing even now. A stream might vanish under your feet, leaving the ground above dry, while below it rushes through spaces big enough to hide trains. Early discoverers tried to follow these hidden streams by throwing floating things like wood bits or even marked ducks into sinkholes and waiting to see where they popped up later. Today's science uses colors and feelers, but the puzzle stays charming. In size, karst is far from uncommon. It covers around 20% of the world's dry land. Big parts of Europe, North America, China, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East sit on meltable rock that makes karst places. These spots often give key water supplies since the holy limestone works like a sponge. Springs coming from karst. Water stores have helped towns and farms for thousands of years, but this plenty has a trick. Because water moves fast through the cracks, karst water stores are easy to dirty. One spill on top can taint wells miles off. The value of karst goes way beyond rocks. For endless groups of people, caves have been homes, resting places for the dead, and holy spots. Some of the oldest human drawings were made deep in karst caves where torch flickers threw shadows on wet walls. These places feel from another world, half nature and half magic, and they've always woken human dreams. In stories, caves often stand for doors to the world below, ways to places past normal life. Karst also shapes how folks live on the land. Thin dirt over limestone makes growing hard. So, groups often find smart ways to grow food in bits of good ground. Where water drops into sinkholes, growers must learn to adjust or risk losing whole fields to quick floods or falls. Roads and homes built on karst need extra care, since the hidden empty spots below can move without notice. This endless back and forth of chance and risk marks life in these areas. Though karst is everywhere, each spot has its own feel. In the Balkans, where the name started, wavy limestone flat tops are spotted with sinkholes and caves, making a land both rough and pretty. In the United States, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky stretches for more than 600 kilometers of known paths, making it the longest cave system we know. In Vietnam's Halong Bay, limestone towers rise from the sea, wrapped in fog. The variety of karst is huge, yet all these places share the same start: stone melted by water, shaped by time. In the end, what marks karst most is its two sides. It is both here and gone, rock and empty, top and below. It is hard stone shaped into weakness, places that seem strong yet can disappear under your feet. It is also a sign of patience. No human tool cuts these caves. No big burst or shake makes them in a day. Instead, karst is made by countless raindrops working quietly over thousands of years. To explain karst, then, is to see a land that's hidden right in front of us. It is the world under the world, a web of stone and water that shows how even the softest powers can remake the earth. These places may seem puzzling, but they follow easy rules of mixing and time. And yet, for all the knowing we can use, they stay spots of magic. Spots where rocks and dreams meet, where quiet rules, and where the earth softly shares its deepest tales. If karst places are the stage, then water is both the writer and the slow builder of the scene. The powers that form these spots are gentle, but never stop, happening over time so long that our lives look like quick flashes next to them. To understand karst, you must imagine not big disasters, but instead the slow mixing of rain, the quiet pull of weight, and the hidden work of living things. At the center of it all is the chemical sway between water and rock. Rainwater, as fresh as it looks falling from clouds, is never fully plain. As it goes through the air, it picks up fizz gas. And when it drips through dirt full of rotting plants, it gathers more. The end is a weak fizz acid, mild enough to sip, but just bitey enough to nibble at limestone, dolomite, and gypsum. This soft souring is nature's hidden tool, letting every drop melt a tiny speck of rock. One drop does nothing, but billions of drops, over thousands upon thousands of years, cut caves big enough to fly a plane through. Rocks set the scene by giving stones that are extra easy for this to happen. Limestone, mostly calcium carbonate, is the most common. It often comes from the shells and bones of sea creatures that settled on old ocean floors. Over millions of years, those bits got packed and lifted by earth pushes until they made mountain lines or flat highs. What started as coral homes and shallow waters became high walls and wide limestone flats ready to be shaped by rain. Dolomite, like limestone but with magnesium, acts much the same, though it fights melting a bit more. Gypsum, a softer bit, melts even quicker, making karst shapes at a faster speed. The way of shaping karst isn't just on top. Cracks in rock, called joints, give ways for the water to sneak in. At first, these cracks are thin lines you can't see. As water slips in, the edges melt, making the gap wider. Over hundreds of years, those cracks become streams. Over thousands of years, streams become caves. In time, whole webs of underground rivers link up, connecting sinkholes and springs in a fancy pipe system that ignores the clean lines of the top land. Unlike rivers that follow down slopes through valleys, karst waters twist and vanish, popping up where you least think. Weather plays a big part in how fast these things happen. In warm, wet spots, lots of rain and high fizz in dirt speed up melting, making bold karst tops, like the high towers of southern China or the pointy peaks of Madagascar. In colder spots, the way slows, though it doesn't stop. Even the soft drip of snowmelt can carry enough sour to shape rock. In dry spots where rain is rare, karst still grows, but the shapes tend to be more gentle, often hidden below rather than shown in high walls. Warmth matters too. Hotter air lets mixing happen quicker, so warm spots near the middle of the earth make karst faster than cold ends. This is why some of the most amazing karst shapes are in wet zones near the warm belt where heat, rain, and lots of plants team up to hurry melting. Talking of plants, living things help shape karst more than you might think. Plants and tiny beings in dirt breathe out fizz gas as they live, adding to the sour of water slipping in. Roots push into cracks, guiding wetness down and sometimes prying rock apart with push. Some tiny bugs and molds even help melt minerals, adding their own living marks to the underground world. In this way, woods above ground quietly team up with the hidden caves below. Over time, these powers make an odd layering of lands. On top, fields may look normal, with bushes or animals munching. Below, though, big, empty spots may spread everywhere. This two-sided way makes shakiness. Weight is always waiting for when tops of underground rooms get too thin to hold what's above. When that happens, the ground gives in, making sinkholes. From small dips to huge dolines, these falls are bold signs that water and mixing have been working in secret all along. The shaping of karst also owes a lot to water study, how water moves. Unlike in non-karst lands, where rivers follow expected ways, water in meltable rock can drop straight into gaps. Once below, it often flows with push, making strong springs that burst out at valley bottoms. These springs are more than pretty. They're key water spots for whole areas. The surprise of these flows, though, has tested groups for ages, making them adjust to lands where rivers vanish without hint. Another main power is time itself. Our quick wants make it easy to dream of fast change, but karst is the land of waiting. A single stalactite may take hundreds of years to grow just a thumb's length. A cave web, like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, needed millions of years of steady melting. The splendor of karst is a sign that Earth doesn't hurry. It shapes with steady work rather than force. There are also push powers at play. Once cracks and empty spots are set, water flowing through them starts to wear by scrape as well as melt. Pebbles and dirt carried by underground rivers grind at the rock, smoothing paths and growing rooms. In flood times, the wearing power of these hidden rivers can be huge, shifting big stones and remaking underground halls in ways unseen by the top world. In coast karst, yet another power joins the tale. The sea, where limestone meets saltwater. Waves chew at walls while tide changes pump water in and out of gaps, boosting melting. Over long times, coast karst can make sea caves, arches, and stacks, blending the work of ocean and rain into mixed lands that feel both ground and sea. Together, these ways make a land unlike any other. It is a world shaped by sour, so mild it hardly tastes, led by the slow pull of weight, boosted by the breath of roots and tiny beings, and kept in the build of stone. What makes karst so pulling is not that any one power is amazing, but that the normal strengths of nature, water, air, life, and time meet in one spot to make amazing ends. It is easy to see lands as still backgrounds, but Karst shows us that the earth is always moving, even when we can't see it. Under every grassy spot or wooded hill on limestone, a hidden change is happening bit by bit. Over times longer than human tales, that change makes caves, towers, springs, and sinkholes. These are the marks of powers that rarely call out, yet never rest. The shaping of karst is thus a quiet, steady act. It shows us that strength doesn't always boom or burst. Sometimes it whispers. And in those whispers of melting stone and dripping water, whole lands of quiet and puzzle are born. To understand karst, you must picture an endless talk between water and stone. Unlike rivers that cut their valleys openly for all to see, this chat happens both on top and in secret rooms below ground. It is not a fast fight, but a slow and waiting swap where every raindrop bargains with limestone, dolomite, or gypsum, asking them to give up a little of their stuff. Over hundreds of years, that soft talk becomes one of the most changing powers in nature. Water starts its work in the clouds, gathering fizz gas as it falls through the air. By the time drops hit the ground, they already have a hint of sour. As they sink into dirt thick with roots and tiny beings, they soak up even more fizz gas, making them a bit more bitey. What seems to us like clean, fresh rain is really a tiny moving shaper with just enough chemical nip to melt rock. When this water drips into the breaks of limestone, something wonderful begins. The calcium carbonate that builds the stone reacts with fizz acid, making calcium bicarbonate, a thing easily carried off in the flow. In easy words, the rock melts into nothing, vanishing bit by bit into the underground water. This way is so slow that no one drop does much. But times across millions of years and endless drops, it becomes a strength that can cut caves big enough to hide whole towns. Wearing in karst places is both seen and hidden. On top, streams may cut shallow valleys into the stone, only to suddenly vanish down swallow holes, where the flow disappears into dark. Below ground, those same waters may race along paths, chipping at the walls, not only through chemical melt, but also through real scrape. Dirt carried by the water acts like rough paper, grinding smooth bends into the limestone and growing gaps into wide tunnels. The swap between water and rock makes a lively system. During dry times, underground water may pull back into deep pools, leaving caves quiet and still. But during floods, those same caves can fill fast, with roaring rushes, turning echoing rooms into underground rivers. This two-sided way means karst is always shifting. A spring that gushes clear water in spring may be dry by fall. A pool that looks peaceful one season may burst like a fountain the next. The surprise is part of itself. On top, the lack of flowing rivers is often just as telling as their being there. In many karst spots, top streams are few because water quickly seeps into the holy ground. Instead of twisting across lands in wide curves, rivers vanish into gaps, leaving dry valleys that look like they should have streams, but don't. These blind valleys end suddenly, where the water disappears, swallowed by the earth. For early folks, this was confusing. How could a river just stop? It led to stories of gods or spirits drinking the water. Today, water experts can follow the paths of these hidden flows with colors and tools. But the puzzle hasn't fully gone. The beauty of this swap is maybe most seen inside caves where dripping water builds new shapes as fast as it wears old ones. As drops fall from the top, They lose some of their fizz gas, causing melted calcium carbonate to turn back into solid stone. Over hundreds of years, this makes stalactites hanging like ice points and stalagmites rising from the floor. When the two touch, they make solid posts that look like the pillars of some forgotten holy place. Delicate shapes like soda straws, flowstones, and helictites all owe their being to the same waiting swap between water and rock. It is a sign that wearing is not only breaking, it is also making, giving rise to forms of amazing fancy. Another side of this water-earth link is how it changes whole lands above ground. In spots with thick limestone beds, the ground can fall into sinkholes. When underground empty spots grow too big to hold the top, some of these falls are small dips, a few steps wide, while others are so huge they hold whole villages or woods in their depths. In China's Guangxi area, sinkholes, hundreds of steps deep, make natural stages with special living spots at the bottom. Each fall is a seen mark of the hidden wearing that has been going on for thousands of years. In coast areas, water adds another turn by teeming with the sea. Where karst meets the ocean, waves pound walls while tides push seawater into underground cracks. The mix of fresh groundwater and salty tides speeds up melting, making sea caves, arches, and even whole bays such as Vietnam's Ha Long Bay. These lands, shaped together by chemical and push powers, show that karst is not stuck to inland flats, but reaches into the hug of the ocean. This steady play between water and stone has big effects for human life. Springs bursting from karst, water stores, often give groups vital drinks of water. At the same time, the same holy ways that make karst water stores giving also make them weak. Dirt from farms, work, or homes can travel through underground streams with surprising speed, tainting wells far away. Once again, water's team with stone shows its two-edged self. It can keep life or harm it depending on how it's handled. The size of these swaps is hard to grasp because they happen on times beyond what we know. A river can cut a valley in tens of thousands of years, but a cave system may need millions. The powers are so weighting that they almost beat dreaming. Yet the proof is there in every stalactite, every spring, every wide doline. Standing inside a vast cavern, you're not just in a hole in the ground. You're inside the record of countless raindrops, each one adding its bit of work to the wonder around you. What makes this way so pulling is its odd self. Water is gentle enough to ease thirst, yet steady enough to hollow mountains. Limestone seems solid and unmovable, yet it gives to the faintest sour with surprising ease. Together they form a talk of strength and weakness, lasting and change. The end is a land of wonder that feels both forever and always shifting. In the end, the swap between water and earth in karst reminds us that the planet's most bold changes often happen quietly. They do not call out with bursts or shakes, but with a steady drip of water into stone. It is this quiet, steady times over unthinkable long spans that has made the mazes, towers, and hidden rivers that mark karst. And though we can explain the mixing and follow the flows, there stays something like a song in the idea that a whole world can be carved not by force, but by patience. Karst places are best known not by soft slopes or wavy flats, but by their bold shapes, features so special that they seem from another star. These are lands of sudden empty spots, pointy peaks, and stone groves shaped by the unseen hand of water working on meltable rock. Each shape tells a tale of time and change, of mixing and fall, and together they make some of the most eye-catching lands on Earth. Maybe the most famous of these shapes is the sinkhole. These dips happen when the top of an underground empty spot gives way, sending the top tumbling into the nothing below. Some sinkholes are small, shallow bowls that just gather rainwater or make spots for animals to eat. Others are vast chasms able to swallow buildings or make whole little living spots at their base. In parts of Florida, sinkholes are so usual that safety companies see them as normal risks. In China, the huge Tiankeng sinkholes drop hundreds of steps into the ground. Their depth so deep that they hide woods and rare living things from the outside world. A sinkhole is both an end and a start, the end of steady ground above, and the start of a new home below. Just as striking are the limestone towers that rise like guards from valley floors. These come from melting that leaves behind lone blocks of tough rock, while the around stone wears away. In southern China, the Karst towers of Guilin and Yangshuo make views so famous that they've been drawn, snapped, and cheered for hundreds of years. Rising like green-covered teeth from a foggy flat, they are signs of lasting in the face of water's slow wear. In Southeast Asia, like shapes form the coastlines of Vietnam's Halong Bay and Thailand's Phang Nga Bay, where limestone islands surge from the sea like giant carvings. These towers are not just rock oddities, they are treasures of ways of life woven into drawings, songs of words, and a country's sense of self. Caves, though, stay the most bold and charming shapes of karst. They are big halls without makers, made fully by the slow seep of sour water through rock. Step inside one and the outside fades. Stalactites dangle like stone lights. Stalagmites rise like frozen fires, and columns link top to floor in quiet splendor. Some caves go only a few steps, while others stretch across hundreds of kilometers. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky holds the longest known cave system in the world, with more than 600 kilometers of mapped paths. In Slovenia, the Scotian caves boast underground canyons so huge that they look like from a dream tale. These below-ground realms show the raw art of water, making spaces that spark wonder and small feeling in equal share. Another bold show of karst is the cliff face. Where limestone beds meet rivers or seas, sheer walls rise quickly, shaped by both chemical and real wear. The white cliffs of Dover in England, though really chalk, not limestone, are a karst show on the coast, shining against the sea like a natural stronghold. In the Balkans, steep limestone cuts made by rivers make lands of rough walls and winding, deep spots. These cliffs stand as brave signs that karst is not stuck to what's below. It also shapes the skyline. One of the oddest shapes is the stone forest, a pointy maze of peaks and spikes, made when melting strips softer rock and leaves behind razor edges. Nowhere is this more bold than in Madagascar's Tsingy de Bemaraha, where whole areas are covered in limestone blades, so sharp and narrow that they're nearly impossible to cross without ropes. This stone grove is home to rare wildlife and has stayed alone for ages, a stronghold made not by walls but by rocks. While karst is most tied to rock, it also makes land shapes that mix with other natural ways. Polyas, for instance, are large, flat-bottomed dips, often several kilometers wide, ringed by steep limestone walls. They may flood with seasons, turning into short lakes before draining back underground. These basins have long been used for growing, their rich dirt standing out from the thin, rocky ground around. The name itself comes from the Balkans, where Polyas rule the land, shaping both ways to live, and where folks settle. Another special shape is the disappearing river. Unlike most waterways that flow steady on top, karst rivers may plunge suddenly into swallow holes, traveling unseen through underground paths before resurfacing at a spring. This makes lands of surprise where a valley may have a river one moment and a dry bed the next. The Ljubljanica River in Slovenia is famous for vanishing and reappearing many times along its way, a thing that puzzled early watchers and sparked local tales. Even the smallest bits of karst shapes are striking. Delicate soda straws, those slender, hollow stalactites, grow drop by drop until they form curtains of see-through stone. Flowstones spread across cave walls in wavy sheets, as if the rock had once flowed like water. In rare cases, crystals and bits add color, turning cave rooms into galleries of natural art. Each shape is one of a kind. Yet all are born from the same swap of water and meltable stone. The bold of karst is boosted by its size. A single sinkhole may be small enough to walk around in minutes, while a cave system may stretch farther than a person could explore in a lifetime. Towering limestone cliffs may rule a coastline seen from miles away, while delicate cave shapes need careful light to show their beauty. This range of shapes, from the big to the fancy, makes karst forever pulling. It is also good to remember that these lands are not still. Sinkholes grow, caves expand, towers break, and rivers change ways. The bold shapes we see today are snaps in an ongoing way of change. What stands as a peak now may fall into bits in hundreds of years to come, while new empty spots are already forming in quiet underground. The bold is ongoing, though often hidden from sight. The richness of karst shapes lies in their mix and in their power to surprise. To walk across a karst flat is to step into not sure. The ground may hide a cavern, the valley may end in a wall, the river may vanish without hint. Yet this very not sure gives the land itself. It is a place where nature shows its art in unexpected ways, shaping forms that go against normal ideas of how land should act. From yawning sinkholes to soaring towers, from maze-like caves to groves of stone, the bold shapes of karst are among the earth's most amazing makes. They show that water, though gentle, has the power to carve lands of breathtaking size and beauty. And they remind us that the planet is full of surprises waiting quietly beneath our feet. Beneath the known top of meadows, woods, and towns lies a whole other land, one that most folks never see. These are the underground realms of karst, hidden worlds where rivers run in the dark, rooms echo with water drips, and rock shapes grow like slow gardens of stone. They are places that go against normal knowing, for to enter them is to step into another side of Earth's tale. Caves are the clearest way into this below-ground world. They come in many kinds. Small nooks that give cool hide from the sun, narrow paths that twist deep into the earth, and vast rooms big enough to fit tall buildings. The making of these spaces starts with a simple crack in the rock, widened over thousands of years by sour water. As these gaps grow, they link into webs, becoming full cave systems. Some stay fairly short, while others go for hundreds of kilometers. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, for example, has more than 600 kilometers of mapped passages, and still more waiting to be found. It is less a cave than a maze, a stone world beneath the top. Inside these hidden spaces, water keeps its waiting work. Stalactites hang from tops. Stalagmites rise from floors, and between them grow all sorts of strange shapes. Delicate soda straws, twisting helictites, wide flowstones that drape across walls like frozen waterfalls. Each feature tells the story of countless water drops, leaving behind tiny bits of calcite. The result is a below-ground build that matches anything human makers could dream. To stand in such a room is to be reminded that art is not stuck to the top world. But caves are not only about beauty, they're also key parts of the planet's pipe system. Underground rivers and water stores run through karst like veins, carrying water across big distances before it comes back at springs. These water stores supply drinks to hundreds of millions of people around the world. Their fancy ways, though, make them hard to handle. Unlike water stores in sand or gravel, which filter water slowly, karst water stores are full of paths that let water rush through fast. This means they can give lots of water, but also that they're weak to dirt. A spill on top may travel miles underground in just a few days, coming out far away, at a spring that feeds a whole town. The hidden self of these water stores makes them both priceless and weak. In many places, the underground world is more than stone and water. It is also ice. In spots where karst meets cold weather, caves may trap snow and ice, keeping it for hundreds of years. These ice caves are amazing time boxes, storing marks of old weather in their frozen layers. Scientists can study ancient ice kept underground to understand how warmth and rain changed over thousands of years. In some cases, permafrost mixes with limestone to make unique shapes, blending the ways of freeze and thaw with the mixing of melt. These frozen realms remind us that hidden lands are not the same, but change boldly with the weather. Life, too, finds ways to fit these secret spots. Deep in caves where sun never reaches, living things grow amazing traits. Blind cave fish swim without eyes, using feel for shakes to sense around. Shellfish, bugs, and even salamanders in some spots have fit to total dark, pale, and ghost-like in look. Bats rest in huge groups, their wings filling caves with a different kind of move. In some caves, tiny being mats thrive on minerals or sulfur, keeping whole living webs fully apart from sun. These creatures show that even the darkest spots can be full of life. Human past has also been shaped by these underground places. For early folks, caves gave shield from weather and hunters. They became homes, safe spots, and walls for some of the oldest known art. The painted walls of Chauvet and Lascaux in France show animals that wandered tens of thousands of years ago, kept forever in flickering firelight. Other caves became places for the dead, spots of custom or stores for valued things. Even today, many caves hold holy meaning, serving as holy spots or trip goals. For countless groups, humans have felt that what lies below is not just empty space, but something holy and puzzling. The hidden realms of karst are not always peaceful. They can be risky too. Sudden floods can turn quiet paths into raging underground rivers. Fizz gas trapped in caves can build up, choking the unwary. Narrow paths and shaky tops make looking risky. Yet despite these dangers, the pull of the underground keeps drawing brave folks and knowers alike. The urge to look below our feet seems built into human wonder, as if the unknown dark is a call we can't ignore. These realms also test our sense of size. On top, distance is measured in kilometers across open ground. Underground, the same distance may need crawling through tight tunnels, dropping down straight shafts, or swimming flooded paths. A map of a large cave system looks more like a tangled web than a straight way. The fancy of these webs is amazing, and even in our time, new paths are still being found. Beneath known lands, there are worlds still unmarked. What makes these hidden places so pulling is the difference they offer. On top, life is ruled by sun, weather, and the beats of day and night. Underground, those beats vanished. There is no sunrise, no storm, only the forever drip of water and the slow growth of stone. Time seems to move differently in such places. You could sit in quiet and feel as though hundreds of years were passing around you. This changed sense of time and space is part of what makes caves and water stores so pulling. The underground world of Karst is not apart from the top. It is linked in countless ways. Water circles between the two, living webs depend on both, and human past flows across them. Yet it stays a realm aside, hidden, hard to catch, and often surprising. To look at it, whether for real or in dreams, is to step into the Earth's own secret rooms, where stone, water, ice, and life mix in ways both tender and grand. These realms remind us that the world we walk on is only the top layer of something far deeper and more puzzling. Life has a wonderful skill for appearing in spots where it seems least likely. Karst lands with their thin dirt, vanishing rivers, and vast underground empty spots might look unwelcoming at first. Yet they are home to living webs that are not only tough, but often fully unique. In these extreme spaces, plants and animals fit to tests that would beat most kinds, showing once more that nature has a gift for making when things are hard. On top, life in karst spots deals with rocky ground and little good dirt. Growing food is tough because good bits wash fast through the holy limestone, leaving little for plants. But wild greens take every crack. Tough bushes, grasses, and trees that stand dry set roots in gaps where even a light dust of dirt gathers. In seaside karst, evergreen oaks and junipers hold to rocky slopes, while sweet-smelling herbs like thyme and sage fill the air with their smell. These plants may not have deep, rich dirt, but they grow by being experts in little. Animals, too, learn to fit the uneven top. Goats are well known for suiting these rough spots, able to climb across pointy limestone for sparse greens. Herders in Greece, the Balkans, and the Middle East have counted on goats for thousands of years because they can live where cows or horses would fail. Birds that hunt like eagles and hawks use limestone walls as nest spots, taking the high ground to raise young out of reach from most chasers. Reptiles like lizards and snakes warm on sun-heated rocks, slipping into cracks when trouble comes. But it is below the top where life truly enters the world of the amazing. Caves and underground rivers offer some of the hardest spots you can dream. Total dark, little food, and often low air. Yet in these shadowy spots, growing has made amazing fits. Blind cave fish are maybe the most known dwellers. Needing no sight, their eyes have faded over groups, while other senses have sharpened. They use shakes in the water to spot move, swimming as if the cave were drawn in unseen sound. Their pale, almost see-through bodies remind us that growing is not always about adding traits, but sometimes about letting go of what's no longer needed. Other cave livers take a different way. Shellfish, like amphipods and crayfish, live in below-ground streams, often showing ghostly white from no color. Some salamanders, like the olm of Central Europe, spend their whole lives in dark. This unusual water liver, with its pale pink skin and feathery gills, can live for years without food by slowing its inside work to a creep. The olm is so unusual that local tales once called it the child of dragons, a fitting story for such a strange being. Bats are another must-have part of these underground worlds. While they don't live only in caves, they count on them for resting and winter sleep. In some caverns, millions of bats gather in groups so big that their night flights darken the sky. Guano, the pile of bat droppings, becomes a key help in these systems. Though it may not sound fancy, guano gives good bits that support whole groups of bugs, molds, and tiny beings, making a food chain in a spot otherwise hungry for sun. In this way, bats act as messengers, bringing the richness of the outside into the bare depths. Tiny beings themselves deserve notice as starters of extreme spots. In some caves, bacteria make groups on rock walls, pulling energy from sulfur, iron, or other bits rather than sun. These tiny groups are small but strong, and they help knowers understand how life might live in spots far from Earth. In fact, searchers studying cave tiny beings often say that if life can last in such poor, dark ways here, it might also last on other worlds or moons. Karst caves, in this sense, serve as natural work spots for space life study. In warm karst spots where towers and points rise from the land, life clings to straight surfaces in ways that seem impossible. Plants grow right on sheer walls, their roots finding hold in tiny cracks. In Madagascar's Tsingy de Bemaraha, limestone blades make a land so sharp and broken that humans struggle to cross it. Yet lemurs jump easily among the spires, while birds nest in safe nooks, and special reptiles crawl across the razor-edge stone. What seems hard for us is just another home for kinds that grew with it. Water-filled sinkholes, or cenotes, found in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, host yet another bunch of life. These pools, formed when tops of underground caverns fall, connect to vast water stores below. Some cenotes are open to the sky, supporting fish, water livers, and water plants. Others stay partly closed, their waters lit only by beams of sun that poke through gaps in the top. These dimly lit living webs blend the worlds of top and below-ground life, making homes unlike any other on Earth. Even short homes in Karst are rich with life. Polyas, the large flat-bottomed dips that flood with seasons, become wet spots, teeming with birds, water livers, and bugs during rainy times. When the water drains back underground, plants sprout fast in the good rich dirt. This cycle of flood and dry makes a beat that keeps mixed groups. For growers, these polyas can be both a gift and a test. Rich when dry, risky when filled. But for wildlife, they give change in homes that shift with seasons. Extreme spaces also grow human fits in surprising ways. Groups living in karst spots have learned to use the living mix around them with care. Old healing often draws from the unique plants that thrive in thin dirt. Local eats include kinds that can live in the rocky ground or in the waters of underground springs. Tales draw spark from the creatures of the caves. Bats, blindfish, and strange water livers often show in stories as signs of toughness, puzzle, or change. What ties all these examples is toughness. Life in karstlands is not plenty like in warm rainwoods or rich flats. It is sparse, special, and often weak. Yet that very weakness makes it dear. The creatures and plants that live in such extreme spots are signs of how fit life can be. They show us that even in places of little and dark, being finds a hold, shaping groups as strange as they are pretty. In the end, karst living mix is a cheer of lasting. It is the pale fish gliding quietly in underground rivers, the bat group that turns a cavern into a busy spot, the bush rooted in a crack of bare stone, and the lemur leaping through a grove of stone blades. Together they tell a tale of living against odds, of life growing, not despite hard, but because of it. These extreme spaces, hidden and bold, remind us that nature rarely wastes a chance. Wherever there is even the faintest hope of living, something will grab it and make it home. For all their bold walls, sinkholes, and caves, karst lands are maybe most key for something far less seen. Water. In many parts of the world, life counts on the hidden water stores beneath limestone hills and flats. These underground systems hold and carry huge amounts of fresh water, often feeding whole cities. Yet, just as they give plenty, they also make tests. For karst water acts in ways that are surprise, weak, and hard to handle. To live on karst ground is to do a constant balance with a spot that can both keep and trick. The holy self of limestone means that rainwater seeps into the ground fast, vanishing from the top with surprising quick. On flat farmland, this might leave fields dry and rivers few, but below the water is flowing through gaps and caves, gathering into vast water stores. These pools are key sources of drink water. In fact, nearly 1/4 of all people count straight on karst water stores for their daily needs. Springs that burst at the edges of karst, flats often gush with clear cold water that has traveled unseen for miles underground. Such springs have been prized for thousands of years, serving as the base for villages, towns, and cities. Old groups knew the value of these waters, even if they didn't get the mixing. In the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya counted on cenotes, sinkholes that linked to underground water stores as vital fresh water in an otherwise dry land. These pools were not only useful but holy, seen as doors to the world below. In the seaside spots, karst kept settlements where top rivers were gone. The Greeks and Romans tapped into these sources, sometimes building fancy waterways to carry the water to far groups. Even today, many of Europe's cities, from Vienna to Rome, still count heavily on karst-fed springs. Yet, the same traits that make karst water stores plenty also make them weak. Unlike water stores in sand or gravel, where water moves slow and gets cleaned naturally, karst water stores let water travel fast through open paths. This means that any dirt on top can reach wells and springs far from its start in just days. Farm chemicals, waste, and work trash all move quick through these systems, leaving little chance for natural clean. For groups that count on karst water, this weakness needs watch. One careless spill can spoil the supply for thousands. The surprise of karst water also makes growing tricky. In many karst spots, rivers vanish into swallow holes, leaving valleys dry and hard to wet. Fields can flood when underground paths get blocked, only to dry when the block clears. Growers often fight with thin dirt and uneven water, forced to fit with smart fixes. Wall steps and tough plants are common ways, but life stays shaky in places like the Dinaric karst of the Balkans. Growers have learned to expect full and empty in their fields, depending on the moods of the underground. For modern builders, karst brings big headaches. Making water holes in karst ground is famously hard because water leaks through cracks in the rock. Dams may hold a lake only to find the water has gone into the base. Highways and train paths must be planned with care, for sinkholes can open without hint, weakening the ground below. Cities built on karst, like parts of Florida, face costly fights, with sinking as buildings and roads droop into empty spots below. The unseen self of karst rocks means that planners often find its quirks only when troubles come. Despite these hard, people have always tried to use karst water because it is too dear to skip. Wells have been dug into water stores for hundreds of years, sometimes reaching amazing depths. In some parts of China, villagers made fancy systems to tap underground flows, guiding water into wet channels that made growing possible on otherwise tough ground. In the Balkans, springs were caught in stone bowls that gave groups steady supplies through long summers. Each way of life made its own methods for coaxing water from the hidden veins of limestone. In recent times, the push on karst water stores has grown hugely. More people, work growth, and growing demand more water than ever. Too much pulling can lower groundwater, making springs dry and caves fall. Dirt from plant food and city wash seeps quick into the system, threatening not only human health, but also the tender cave-living webs that count on clean water. The very traits that make karst water stores good givers also make them highly touchy to upset. Yet there are good tales. Careful handling of karst water can keep both people and lands. In parts of Austria and Slovenia, safe zones around karst springs make sure woods and grass clean rain before it enters the water store. These spots have some of the cleanest drink water in Europe, sent straight to homes with little fix. In France, the Fontaine de Vaucluse, a strong karst spring, is watched closely to balance human use with living health. These examples show that with honor and look ahead, karst can give for millions without being harmed. There's also a way of life side to this link with water. Springs and wells have often been seen as holy places with spirit power because of their life-giving ways. Many old ways speak of spirits or watchers living in springs, maybe an echo of knowing that these waters are both puzzling and must-have. Gatherings, customs, and stories often grew around them, weaving real need with honor. In a way, these beliefs were an early kind of land safe, reminding folks to treat their water spots with care. Today, as weather change shifts rainways and boosts dry times in many spots, the value of karst water is only growing. Water stores that once seemed endless are now under push as top waters dry. Handling these hidden holds wisely will be key for the future. They are both a gift and a duty, asking careful balance between human want and natural ends. To count on karst water is to live with not sure. Springs may gush one season and vanish the next. Sinkholes may appear in a night. Wells may run clear for decades only to be spoiled by one mistake. Yet this very not sure has grown toughness and smart in the groups that live in these lands. From ancient cenotes to modern pipes, from holy springs to knowing watch, humans have learned to fit, finding ways to grow alongside a spot that never shows all its secrets. In the end, karst reminds us that water is not just a thing, but a link. It flows through the hidden paths of the earth, connecting top and depth, past and future, human and not human alike. To drink from a karst spring is to sip the make of countless raindrops, clean through stone and time. It is a reminder that beneath every sip of water lies a whole land, one that keeps us even as it holds much of its tale hidden underground. Long before rock knowers could explain the mixing of melting limestone or water experts could follow the paths of below-ground rivers, old peoples were already living with karst lands, fitting to their quirks and weaving them into their world seas. To early groups, these places were not far-off rock puzzles, but everyday truths, sources of water, shields from weather, and doors into story realms. The being of caves, sinkholes, and surprise springs shaped how groups settled, grew, prayed, and dreamed their place in the stars. One of the most striking examples comes from the Maya of the Yucatan Peninsula. In a spot with few top rivers, karst sinkholes known as cenotes were lifelines. These natural wells tapped into the vast water store beneath the limestone flat, giving fresh water for cities like Chichen Itza. Without cenotes, big centers could never have grown in such a dry land. Yet cenotes were more than useful helps. The Maya believed these deep pools were doors to Xibalba, the world below. Gifts of jade, gold, and even people were thrown into their depths, blending need with spirit. For the Maya, Water drawn from cenotes was food for body, but water given back was a gift to the gods. In the seaside world, karst springs often served as the hearts of settlements. Greece, with its rough limestone mountains, is rich in karst ground. Old groups gathered around strong springs that burst from the base of walls or valleys, their flow steady enough to feed villages all year. Delphi, famous as the spot of Apollo's voice, owed its holy status, in part, to its place on Mount Parnassus, a karst mass with plenty springs and caves. Travelers who came seeking future words met not only holy folks and customs, but also the real power of water, gushing from hidden veins of the earth. In such places, rocks and gods became one. The Romans, with their gift for building, were quick to use karst waters. They made waterways that carried spring water across big distances, making sure steady supplies for growing cities. The Aqua Claudia, finished in the 1st century AD, tapped karst springs in the Anio Valley, moving millions of liters of water to Rome each day. Yet even the Romans struggled with karst surprise. Rivers that vanished underground or springs that changed with seasons tested their plans. Still, their will to master these lands left behind waterways and systems that stay wonders of smart. Further east in China, karst lands sparked not only settling but also art. The Li River Valley near Guilin, with its bold limestone towers, became a loved topic for singers of words and painters. These peaks shaped by melting and wear were compared to dragons rising from mist or mountains from heaven. Long before karst was studied with knowing, it was honored in beauty. Growers in the spot fitted their ways to the narrow valleys between the towers, growing rice in dirt made better by seasoned floods. Meanwhile, boat folks sailed the twisting river, carrying goods and tales through views so special that it still shows on China's money today. In old-time Europe, caves offered hide from cold weather and wild chasers. The famous cave drawings of Lascaux and Chauvet are not only masterworks of early art, but also proofs of how people linked with karst spots. The deep rooms, echoing and flickering with torchlight, became walls for animals that roamed the Ice Age flats. Bison, horses, lions, and mammoths. To step into such a cave was to step into a in-between space, part shield, part show, part holy spot. These drawings suggest that early folks did not see caves just as empty gaps, but as strong places where nature and beyond met. Caves also became places for the dead. Across Europe and the Middle East, human remains have been found deep underground, sometimes with tools or decorations. To place the dead in these spaces was to give them back to the earth's hug, perhaps with the belief that the below-ground world was the door to another life. In this sense, karst lands shaped not only how people lived, but also how they thought of death and after. Beyond shield and custom, karst touched daily living in gentler ways. Thin dirt and vanishing rivers meant growing was hard, forcing early groups to think new. In the Dinaric Alps of the Balkans, growers made ways to work small pulges, flat-bottomed dips in karst ground that flooded now and then. When dry, these basins gave rich dirt. Though growers had to time their planting with care to avoid losing crops to surprise waters. This pattern of full and frustrate marked growing life, teaching toughness and fit long before new wet systems. Karst also gave deer helps. In many caves, piles of saltpeter, a key part in gunpowder, were gathered in later times. But even in old days, bits from caves and cuts supported local trades. Stone itself, plenty in karst spots, was a must for building. Holy places, walls, and homes were cut from limestone blocks, linking daily life with the very rock under feet. Trade paths often followed the quirks of karst, too. Valleys between limestone ridges became natural ways for move, while springs gave must-have stops for groups on the go. Holy trip paths often led to sacred caves or springs, making sure that karst shapes stayed woven into the spirit and trade cloth of groups. A land that at first might seem bare or tricky became, with time, central to way of life self. Even stories bear witness to how old peoples saw karst. In Greek tales, caves and deep spots were doors to Hades, realms of gods and beasts. In Norse legend, below-ground spaces were home to trolls and dwarves, beings tied to hidden riches and secret knowing. In Central American story, the underground was a place of tests and change. These tales show a steady theme. What lies below is strong, puzzling, and not to be taken light. Karst features, with their sudden openings and endless dark, gave the perfect stage for such dreams. What is amazing is how steady this pattern is across the globe. From the Maya cenote to the Greek spring, from the European cave drawing to the Chinese karst tower, human beings have always answered to these lands with a mix of wonder, useful, and honor. They drew water from them, sought shield within them, buried their dead in their depths, and built tales around their strange. Old groups were shaped by many powers: weather, rivers, rich dirt, trade. But karst played its own quiet role, guiding where people settled, how they grew, what they prayed to, and how they dreamed life beyond the scene. In its quiet and surprise, it asked respect, and in return, it gave water, shield, and spark. These lands were not just backs to history, but active parts in it, helping to shape the way of groups that rose and fell on the top above. For as long as people have gazed into the dark mouths of caves or peered into the still waters of a sinkhole, karst lands have stirred the dream. The hidden depths, sudden openings, and echoing rooms have always seemed to call for tales. To early groups, these places were not just natural odds, but edges between worlds. They were holy spaces, homes of spirits, and doors to realms beyond normal life. Stories and old tales bloomed in the shadows of limestone, wrapping puzzle around rocks. In old Greece, caves and deep spots were often seen as ways to Hades, the world below where souls went after death. The cave at Cape Matapan in the Peloponnese was one such spot, believed to be a real door to the realm of the dead. Travelers and tale-tellers alike dreamed spirits passing through its dark, and the land itself gave weight to the story. Where else could the shadow world start but in the earth's hidden hollows? Like the voice at Delphi, perched on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, drew its power from both its spring and nearby caves, where the divine seemed touchable. The Greeks knew that water bursting from stone and caves, yawning into quiet, were no normal things. They needed story explained. Further west, the Romans took and grew these ideas. Springs were often given to nymphs, goddesses, who were the purity and strength of flowing water. The fountains of karst springs were thought to be alive with spirits, their cold, clear proof of their god watch. Holy spots were built beside them, gifts left in thanks for life-giving water. In Rome itself, the Cloaca Maxima, the great waste system, tapped into natural springs and underground paths, giving rise to tales that these waters were guarded by gods who kept the city's health. Across the ocean, the Maya grew a world sea in which cenotes, the great karst sinkholes of the Yucatan Peninsula, were doors to Xibalba, the world below. These pools were central to living, giving fresh water in a land with no top rivers. But they also became spots of custom. Diggers have found jade, gold, pots, and even human bits from cenotes, proof of gifts to the gods. In Maya belief, the shimmering blue depths were not just wells, but star edges, places where people could reach the divine, and the divine could reach back. In Middle Age Europe, caves kept their sense of beyond. Many were turned into Christian holy spots or lone dweller homes, keeping a custom of sacred use going back to before history. The Cave of Saint Michael at Monte San Angelo in Italy became a famous trip spot after the archangel was said to have shone there in the 500 years. Like the Cave of St. Jerome near Bethlehem was honored as the place where the saint turned the Bible into Latin. In these cases, the dark, echoing spaces that once stood for the world below were redreamed as safe spots of God presence. Old tales from Northern Europe often placed dream beings in below-ground spaces. Trolls in Scandinavian stories hid in caves and rocky gaps coming out only at night. Dwarves tied to digging and hidden treasures were said to live in underground halls, carved from limestone and hard rock alike. These stories showed both wonder and worry. The underground was where riches could be found, but also where danger lived. A reminder that the earth below was as alive with puzzle as the skies above. In the Balkans, where the term Karst started, legends fill around springs and sinkholes. Some springs were believed to be bottomless, guarded by snakes or spirits. Villages told tales of lakes that swallowed whole groups of animals, or of caves where voices echoed back as if spoken by otherworld beings. These tales often carried lesson words: wander too close, show no respect, or fail to give proper gift, and the earth itself might punish you. Karst features also played roles in custom beyond story. In Slovenia, for instance, holy wells were spots of season gatherings. Gifts of bread, flowers, or coins were tossed into the waters to make sure good growth and gathers. In some cases, the water from these wells was believed to carry healing powers able to cure sick or give blessings. The blending of real need with holy honor made sure that groups treated these weak water sources with care. In China, the bold limestone towers of Guilin became part of a way-of-life land filled with signs. Artists painted the mist-wrapped peaks as body of harmony between sky and earth. Singers of words compared their soaring shapes to dragons or forever mountains, linking rocks with star-sea. While not clearly holy like cenotes or voices, these towers were still sacred in their own right, shaping art and thinkways for hundreds of years. Even in new times, echoes of these stories last. Tales of bottomless caves, haunted sinkholes, and charmed springs keep going in the country groups. Guide folks often tell local legends to visitors. Blending knowing explains with the whispers of beyond. In this way, old tales live on, reminding us that human dreams never fully cut their tie with the puzzling. What all of these customs share is the sense that karst lands are edges, places where the normal world thins and another realm presses close. A spring bursting from solid rock seems wonder. A cave plunging into dark suggests endless depth. A sinkhole swallowing rivers hints at hidden worlds below. For old peoples, without knowing explains, the only sense was that such features were holy. They were gifts from gods, doors to the world below, or homes of spirits. There is also something deeply human about treating these spaces with honor. To count on water from a spring is to know its life-giving power. To shield in a cave is to feel it's safe. To bury gifts in a cenote is to show thanks and seek good. These ways, rooted in living, naturally grew into custom and story. They turned rocks into God think, water study into star sea, even today standing at the mouth of a great cavern or gazing into the blue depths of a cenote. It is easy to see why these places became holy. The dark is deep, the quiet unsettling, the water otherworld. Knowing may explain the mixing and waterways, but a sense remains. The stories and holy customs of Karst are not old bits of the past, but mirrors of a feeling that still stirs in us, that some places are simply closer to puzzle than others. The legends tied to Karst remind us that lands are never just body spaces. They're also way of life and spirit grounds woven with meaning by those who live among them. Caves, springs, and sinkholes are not only rock happenings, they're also holders for tales that link groups, shaping how folks see their world and their place in it. To step into a karst land is to walk through a land of story as much as a land of stone. Few lands have woken dreams quite like Karst. Its caves, towers, and sudden empty spots are not only rock oddities, but also lasting signs in books and art. When singers of words and painters sought to catch puzzle, beyond or the grand, they often turned to these strange makes of stone and shadow. Karst is more than a ground. It is a wall on which groups of writers and artists have thrown wonder, fear, honor, and beauty. China offers some of the most cheered art answers to Karst. The limestone towers of Guilin and the Li River Valley have shown in songs and drawings for more than 1,000 years. Tang family singers described the mist-wrapped peaks as though they were spirits rising from the earth, their jagged outlines bodying the balance of sky and ground. Ink drawings often showed the area's famous spires, dotted with fish folks in bamboo boats or lone thinkers looking at the view. These lands were not drawn for true alone, but to wake, think, the way that nature's roughness mirrors the human search for clear and light. So deeply set are these karst pictures in Chinese ways that the Guilin views still show on modern money, carrying with it the weight of art custom. European art and books show a different pull. The call of caves. From the new birth time on, caves became signs of both wonder and dread. The playmakers of old had already used them as settings for voices, nymphs, and below-world trips. But later writers filled them with deeper meaning. Dante, in the early 1400s, went down into the dark caverns of the hell, each level more haunting than the last. His dreamed world below was sparked in part by real Italian nooks, where the weight of stone and drip of water seemed to suggest forever punish and God puzzle alike. Romantic singers of words hundreds of years later hugged caves and walls as signs of the grand. Those moments when beauty and fear teemed to overwhelm the senses. Lord Byron, who traveled wide in Europe, wrote brightly of alpine lands, including karst deep spots and caverns. In Manfred, his thinking lead pulls back into the high mountains and echoing caves of the Alps, seeking both comfort and face with beyond powers. The pictures of karst lands suited the romantic mood perfectly, rough, puzzling, and vast beyond human size. Painters, too, were drawn to the bold of underground worlds. In the 17th and 1800s, European artists made capriccios, dream drawings that blended real ruins and dreamed caverns. These walls often featured crumbling arches opening onto vast nooks lit by torches that showed stalactites and cracked tops. The play of light and dark boosted the sense of puzzle. Later, when caves such as Postojna in Slovenia or Mammoth Cave in Kentucky became visitor spots, artists and early snap-takers recorded their insides, wondering at shapes that looked like lights, drapes, or organ pipes carved from stone. These pictures spread wide, fueling both knowing wonder and art spark. The 1900 brought yet another shift as lookers and nature knowers began sharing detailed tales of karst lands. Drawn travel books teamed knowing with art, blending exact sketches of stalactites with romantic shows of cavernous rooms lit by flickering lights. These works stood on the line between rocks and dreams, making the underground open to folks who might never see it for real. Old tales and mouth customs also left their mark on the arts. In Scandinavia, stories of trolls hiding in caves sparked drawers who filled kids' books with shadowy limestone caverns filled with big shapes. In Central Europe, tales of dragons sleeping beneath karst mountains showed in both woodcuts and colored glass. Such pictures shaped how whole groups saw caves not only as rock features but as stages of the dream. In Latin America, the cenotes of the Yucatan entered not only story but also art. Modern Mexican painters touched by Maya customs have shown these pools as star doors, circles of blue-green set against thick greens, signs of both life and give. The cenote, with its still water and perfect balance, lends itself to eye signs, bodying the two of keep and danger. Writers of the New Age have kept drawing on karst pictures. In dream books, underground realms are often central settings, drawing on the old shape of the puzzling cave system. From Tolkien's Mines of Moria to new tales of mazes and hidden rivers, the touch of real karst top is clear. Space Tale has even borrowed the pictures of stalactites and echoing caverns to dream other worlds. The sense of vast, strange, and other world makes karst the perfect pattern for lands that stretch beyond normal knowing. Snap-taking in the 20th hundred brought a whole new way of linking with these places. With long shows and made light, snap-takers caught the inside of caves in never-before detail. The glitter of calcite shapes, the shine of underground lakes, and the sheer size of caverns could now be kept and shared wide. Pictures of Slovenia's Škocjan caves or France's Grotte de Padirac became famous, sparking new groups of travelers, singers of words and artists alike. Even movie has hugged karst. Films often use caves as signs of hidden danger or fine. From adventure tales where brave folks stumble into underground rivers to scary films where dark hides old fears, caves give the perfect air. Tower karst lands, too, show in countless makes, their pointy outlines offering backs that seem unreal even when fully natural. One glance at the limestone towers of Halong Bay, and it becomes clear why movie makers choose them. They look like a dream drawing already made by rocks. Modern art sets sometimes happen within caves themselves, using the natural sounds and haunting beauty of karst rooms as both show space and stage. Music folks play in underground stages where sound bounces in ways no music hall can match. Eye artists throw light onto stalactites and stone walls, making short-lived shows that highlight nature's art while adding a human touch. These events blur the line between natural wonder and way-of-life make, showing that the link between karst and art is still growing. What unites all of these shows, from old songs to now plays, is the knowing that karst lands wake feelings beyond the normal. They are places where puzzle lives, where beauty feels touched with danger, and where quiet is as strong as sound. For artists and writers, this makes them hard to resist. They are deeper meanings waiting to be drawn, lines waiting to be spoken, and stages waiting to be lit. In books and art, karst is never just rock. It is memory and dream, story and deeper meaning. It is the dragon's home, the singer's alone, the painter's bold make, and the snap-taker's test of catching light in dark. The lands carved by water and time have carved their way into ways of life too. leaving marks as lasting as the stone towers and echoing caverns themselves. To look at a drawing of Gillen or to read a song about a cave is to glimpse the way people have always answered to Karst, with wonder, making, and the sense that these shapes of stone and quiet are part of something greater than us all. Living in Karst country has never been easy. The lands are bold and pretty, but they also bring constant blocks. Thin dirt, surprise water supplies, and sudden sinkholes make growing not sure. Rivers vanish when they're needed most, reappearing far away in spots that may help little to the folks who count on them. Yet human beings, steady and smart, have found ways to fit. Across big lands, groups living on limestone flats and in rocky valleys made plans that turned tests into customs, weaving living into ways of life. Growing was always the biggest fight in these lands. The holy self of limestone meant that rain seeped away fast, leaving little wet for plants. In many spots, good ground gathered only in dips, where bits had built over hundreds of years. These basins, known as polges in the Balkans, became lifelines. Growers planted wheat, corn or greens in the dark dirt, counting on season beats to guide them. During rainy months, polges often flooded, becoming shallow lakes that drowned young plants. When the water pulled back, growers rushed to plant again, taking the short window before the next fill. The cycle was frustrating but sure in its own way, teaching groups to watch the skies and read the land close. Wall steps was another wide fit. By carving steps into slopes of limestone hills, groups made small pockets of grow land where water and dirt could be held. In seaside Karst, olive trees, grapevines, and tough grains grew on these steps, forming the back of eats and trades. Dry stone walls, stacked with care without glue, stopped wear and caught what little dirt there was. These walls, still standing in many places today, show the smart of growers who coaxed life from a land that seemed set to fight growing. Animal keeping offered a different plan for living. Where plants were not sure, herding became a way of life. Goats, sheep, and tough cattle could eat on sparse greens and live in rough ground. Herders led groups across rocky slopes following season eats. In the Balkans, moving animals, the season shift of livestock between low in winter and high in summer became a set custom. Like ways grew in karst spots of Spain, Greece, and the Middle East. The beat of herding tied groups to the land in ways both useful and way of life, shaping music, old tales, and group builds around the moves of animals. Fishing also played a surprise role in certain karst lands. Underground rivers and springs gave homes for fish, eels, and shellfish that could add to eats. In some seaside spots, freshwater springs coming along coasts became good fishing grounds. Elsewhere, sinkholes that filled with water held small fishing. These water helps were surprise, but they added mix to eats and tied settlements to special spots where water was sure. Caves themselves gave more than puzzle. They were useful shields. In times of fight, groups pulled back into the safe of underground rooms. During hard winters, caves gave warmth, their steady warmth shielding dwellers from freezing winds. In hot weather, they served as cool hides. Some groups went further, building lasting homes within rock. Cappadocia in Turkey, though not strict limestone, offers a famous example of cave dweller build where people carved whole cities into walls. In karst spots, smaller cave homes were common, especially for herders seeking season's shield. These spaces linked people to the underground world, not only in spirit, but useful, setting living into stone. Water handling was maybe the most steady worry. Groups made smart ways to catch and store water before it vanished into gaps. Cisterns were carved into rock, lined with cover, and filled during rainy times. Wells were sunk into water stores, sometimes reaching stunning depths. In the seaside, stone paths guided rainwater from roofs into underground tanks. Every drop was dear, and the systems made to save it became as much a part of way of life self as local foods or gatherings. Even today, in many karst villages, old cisterns stay central to group life. Fitting also meant knowing how to live with risks. People in sinkhole easy spots learned to spot warning signs in the land, avoiding build in areas where the ground felt empty or where dips had formed before. Mouth customs often carried useful wisdom, warning young not to play too close to certain spots or telling growers against building near odd hollows. Stories may have sounded like belief, but under the tales lay real lessons in living. Trade in karst spots often leaned heavy on swap. Thin dirt and uneven gathers meant extra was rare. Instead, folks turned to goods that could be made in rocky spots: olive oil, wine, wool, and cheese. These things were lasting and dear, easy to carry along trade paths that wound through valleys and mountain gaps. In this way, karst lands, though hard, became centers of way-of-life swap. What they lacked in plenty grain, they made up for in things that traveled far beyond their edges. Group life itself was shaped by the wants of karst. In areas with little grow land, teamwork was must. Families shared water sources, kept steps together, and matched grazing to avoid overuse of weak slopes. Gatherings often turned around the cycles of water and growing, the return of rains, the draining of flooded poles, or the cutting of sheep. These customs strengthened ties between folks, making sure living through team effort. Karst spots also grew toughness in unexpected ways. Little forced folks to think new, to mix and to grow deep knowing of their spot. Where outsiders might see bare stone, locals knew healing plants, hidden springs, and season hints. The skills needed to live in karst, waiting, watching, and fitting, became way-of-life goods. Groups learned to live light, taking chances without overtaking weak helps. Over hundreds of years, these fits made special way-of-life lands. Dry stone walls cross seaside hillsides. Herder songs echo in limestone valleys. Villages gather around springs and caves. Their build shaped by the halve of stone and water. These are not random patterns, but living maps of human toughness, marked into the land as sure as caves are marked into limestone. Old life in karst was never easy, but it was always smart. People grew where they could, herded where they must, fished where water let, and built groups around the surprise giving of springs and dirt. The result was a way of life both weak and lasting, shaky yet deeply rooted in the beats of rock and water. Even as new build and tools have eased some of these tests, the old patterns stay seen, reminders of hundreds of years spent fitting to lands that ask respect. The tale of living in karst is not just one of hard, it is also one of smart and making. It shows how humans faced with not sure do not just last, but change their around to places of meaning, make, and ways of life. The rocky ground may have tested them, but it also shaped selves, groups, and customs that keep echoing across karst lands today. Karst lands may look strict, even stingy at first, with their thin dirt, vanishing rivers, and rocky ground. Yet below the top and within the stone lies a wealth of helps that humans have long been eager to use. From cutting limestone for build to gathering bits and guano from caves, people have found ways to turn karst into a trade push. The link has always been two-edged. Karst gives freely, but it does not forgive overuse. Limestone itself has been one of the most dear helps. Formed from old seas, packed with the pressed bones and shells of long-gone sea life. It is plenty in karst spots and fairly easy to cut, and for thousands of years, limestone blocks have been shaped into buildings, holy spots, and city walls. The Great Pyramid of Giza, though not in a classic karstland, was built mostly of limestone, showing the stone's central role in big build. In Europe, the Middle Age big halls drew heavy on local limestone cuts. Their high walls and fancy carvings, proof of both the stone's strength and its easy work. Even today, limestone stays a main of build, used in cement, glue, and mixes. Beyond its build uses, limestone has also been used for its mixing traits. When heated in kilns, it makes quick lime, a thing must for everything from glue making to skin work and sugar clean. Whole trades grew around lime make with kilns dotting the edges of karst spots. Growers spread lime on fields to cut dirt sour, while builders mixed it into covers and glues. The stone that melted quietly underground also built groups above ground, serving as both base and tie. Caves themselves have given helps that shaped past in unexpected ways. In many karst caverns, piles of bat guano became highly prized. Though not fancy, guano is rich in nitrates, making it a great plant food and more key a must-part in gunpowder make. During the 18th and 1900s, guano from caves in the Americas and Asia was gathered on big scale, feeding both growing and war. Whole trades sprang up around this unlikely thing, showing that even the droppings of bats could become world important. Saltpeter, another cave-given help, was especially key. It formed naturally on cave walls and floors where nitrates grew from rotting live bits. During fight times, caves in North America and Europe were searched for saltpeter piles to supply gunpowder works. The War of 1812, for instance, saw American caves dug hard to fuel the land's fight efforts. In this way, below-ground karst became a hidden store, its quiet rooms feeding the boom of big guns. Other bits, though less bold, have also been taken from karst spots. Bauxite, the ore of aluminum, is often found in karst dips where it builds through weather. Large piles in places like Jamaica and Hungary changed local trades in the 20th hundred as aluminum became must for new work. Lead, zinc, and iron ores sometimes happen in karst settings too, formed by bit-rich waters moving through limestone. These helps further tied karst with human dough, turning rocky hills into sources of world stuff. Water itself is one of karst's most heavy-used helps. Karst water stores give drink water to nearly 1/4 of the world's people. Cities from Rome to Vienna to Mexico City have drawn on springs and wells fed by karst. The sure and clean of these waters made them priceless, though their weakness to dirt and overuse often brought troubles. Dams and holds, hard to handle in holy ground, have still been tried, sometimes with wind, sometimes with costly leaks. The tender balance of karst waterways has always made water taking a bet, one that groups have been willing to take because the winds were so must. Stone groves, walls and towers also gave raw stuff for cutting. Blocks of limestone were cut from the bold outcrops of southern China and Southeast Asia to build towns and marks. In Europe, vast cuts scarred the sides of karst hills to give stone for cities. The very shapes that drew singers of words and painters also fed stone workers and builders. This, too, is striking. The same tower loved as a natural wonder might be slowly taken apart for build stone. The use of karst has not always been lasting. Overcutting has left some lands scarred, their bold features turned to bits. Guano taking done without care harmed tender, cave-living webs that took thousands of years to form. Mining bauxite or other ores often left behind open pits and dirty waters, harming both the seen and hidden spots. Karst is tough in some ways, but in others it is very weak, and human do has often pushed it to ends. Tourism itself can be seen as a kind of help use. Caves like Slovenia's Postojna or Kentucky's Mammoth Cave have been trade pulls for hundreds of years, drawing visitors with promises of underground wonder. Paths, lights, and builds have been made to hold millions of visitors. This has brought trade good, but also strain as more fizz gas from visitors' breath and made lights boosted the growth of algae that harm shapes. The beauty of Karst, once a free gift, has become a thing sold in tickets and keeps with all the tricks that come from turning nature into a market. In many spots, though, people have also learned to balance use with care. Safe areas now guard some of the most amazing karstlands, making sure cutting and digging do not erase their unique self. Lasting tourism tries to cut the hit of visitors, guiding them through only certain rooms and watching spots close. Water-safe zones guard water stores, knowing that these underground systems are too dear to waste. The tale of Karst helps is in the end a tale of human smart mixed with human want. People found ways to use every part of these lands, from the stone itself to the bits it held and even the droppings of creatures that lived within. These helps built cities, fueled fights, and fed fields, showing that Karst was never just a back, but an active part in human past. Yet this use has always carried risks, for Karst is not endless. Its water stores can be drained, its caves stripped bare, its walls cut into nothing. What stays clear is that Karst has shaped trades as much as it has shaped valleys and hills. The limestone under our feet is not only a rock wonder, but a base of human groups. The hidden caverns have not only sparked stories, but supplied stuff that changed past's way. To walk through a karst spot is to move through a land that has been both treasured and taken, honored for its beauty and used for its wealth. And in that pull lies the ongoing test. How to draw from Karst without breaking the very wonder that makes it so special. Karst lands may shine with their beauty, but they're also lands of not sure. Beneath their grace lies shakiness, for the very powers that carve caves and shape towers also make dangers. Living in or near Karst has always been a bet. The same hidden rivers that give water can flood without hint. The same underground rooms that spark wonder can fall, and the same thin dirt that holds tough plants can vanish into hollows in the night. It is a world where danger is often unseen until the moment it shows. The most known danger in karst spots is the sinkhole. These sudden falls happen when the top of an underground empty spot can no longer hold the weight above. Sometimes the warning signs are gentle. Cracks forming in the ground, a door that won't close, or a patch of land that sinks just a bit. At other times there is no warning. The wide hole simply opens, swallowing roads, cars, and in rare but sad cases, whole homes. Florida, sitting on thick limestone, has become almost the same as sinkholes, with hundreds forming every year. China's huge dolines, by difference, are on another size, measuring hundreds of steps deep and across. While amazing, they remind us that the earth under our feet in karst country is not always as solid as it seems. Flooding is another lasting threat. Karst waterways do not follow the sure patterns of top rivers. Instead, water disappears into gaps, races through underground paths, and resurfaces at springs. During heavy rains, those below paths can quickly get too full, forcing water to rise fast and surprise. Puljeus, the flat-bottomed dips common in the Balkans, often turn into seasoned lakes after storms, drowning fields and settlements. For growers, these floods are both expected and maddening, part of the year beat, yet always able to cause ruin. Even new builds struggle to deal with such sudden waters, for water in karst does not follow the clean sense of drain systems. Sinking, slower than a sinkhole, but just as harming, is another danger. Instead of a quick fall, the ground slowly droops as underground empty spots grow. Buildings tilt, roads crack, and pipes break. Unlike bold sinkholes that ask, quick fix, sinking often creeps quiet, costing groups huge sums in mends over decades. City growth into karst areas has made this trouble more common. Where once only herders and growers dealt with surprise ground, now whole neighborhoods and work zones are built on limestone bases that can't always be trusted. Earth shakes mix with karst in especially tricky ways. Though karst itself does not cause shakes, its empty builds can make the effects bigger. Underground rooms may fall under the hit, starting second sinkholes. Springs may change way, leaving settlements suddenly without water. In some cases, shakes open new gaps that reroute rivers fully. For folks living in karst ground, shake events bring a double threat: the shaking of the earth itself and the fall of the weak underground build. Storms and weather events also mix with karst in unique ways. Because top water drains so quick into gaps, karst spots often have flash floods during strong rain. Water that should spread across a flood flat instead drops into underground paths, only to surge up at springs miles away. This can make floods in areas seemingly far from rain. On the other hand, dry times can hit karst spots especially hard. With little top water hold, groups count on springs that may dry when groundwater falls. The surprise of water flow means that storms can bring both too much water and too little, sometimes in the same year. Dirt brings a more sneaky danger. While not bold like falling ground or sudden floods, tainting of karst water stores can have breaking effects. Because water travels quick through open paths, dirt spreads fast, and with little natural clean. A single spill of chemicals or waste taints springs that supply thousands. Unlike other dangers, which may be local, dirt in karst often travels unseen and far, making it hard to track and stop. For groups counting on these water stores, watch is a constant need. Caves themselves, so often sources of wonder, also carry risks. Their steady warmth and quiet can lull lookers into ease, but underground spots are surprise. Sudden floods can trap folks in paths, while bad gases like fizz gas can build in bad air rooms. Loose rocks and shaky tops pose steady dangers. In past, herders and growers who used caves as shields knew to step careful. Today, fun cavers and visitors sometimes think light of the risks, leading to mishaps that show how unforgiving these spots can be. Even the bold walls and towers of karst come with dangers. Rock falls are common, as water and weather slowly weaken the stone. A peak that has stood for hundreds of years can fall suddenly after heavy rains or frost. For groups living in the shadows of such shapes, the chance of falling rock is a quiet but always there worry. In coast karst, the mix of limestone walls and pounding waves makes landslides that reshape shores boldly. Beauty and danger are often not separable in these lands. In warm karst spots, dangers take yet another shape. The razor-sharp peaks of Madagascar's Tsingy de Bamarha can be nearly impossible, slicing through shoes and skin with ease. Crossing such ground needs caution and respect, for the land itself is as risky as any storm. In Southeast Asia, heavy wet seasons mixed with karst water, ways to make sudden floods and landslides, upsetting groups that have learned to live with cycles of break and new. Despite these risks, folks keep living in karst spots drawn by their water their rich pockets of dirt, and their unique self. Dangers are taken as part of life, just as coast dwellers take storms or river groups endure floods. Overgroups, knowing builds, where to build, which spots to skip, how to spot warning signs. Old tales often code these lessons with stories warning against no respect to certain springs or wandering near dangerous hollows. What might sound like belief is often real wisdom wrapped in tale form. New knowing has bettered our grasp of these dangers, letting for better guess and lesson. Far sea can spot underground empty before build starts. Coloring shows the hidden paths of water, and watch systems track groundwater levels to guess floods. Yet even with tools, the basic surprise of Karst stays. No model can catch every twist of an underground river or every week in a cavern top. Living with karst dangers is still in many ways a matter of fitting rather than winning. What makes these dangers especially striking is their quiet start. There is no bold fire mountain burst, no roaring ice, no high wave. Instead, the dangers of karst come from the same ways that make its beauty. Water melting stone, empty growing in quiet, springs bursting out surprise. The very features that spark wonder also make weakness. To live in karst country is to take this odd. Wonder and risk are carved from the same rock. In the end, karst dangers remind us of the tender balance between humans and the lands they live in. They teach small feeling, for even the ground under us is not always safe. They boost toughness as groups learn to fit and last. And they test us to remember that nature's art often comes with a hidden cost. In the quiet of limestone rooms and the sudden fall of sinkholes lies a lesson. Beauty and danger are not separable friends in the strange surprise world of karst. Karst lands have always been lively, shaped by the slow steady of water-melting stone. Yet in the new age, change is coming faster, and with far bigger ends than ever. Human do now races with natural ways, often speeding or boosting changes that once happened over thousands of years. Weather change, visitor trips, and dirt are pushing on these tender systems, testing their toughness and forcing us to rethink how we link to them. One of the closest pushes is weather change. Karst water stores, which give nearly 1/4 of the world's folks' drink water, are highly touchy to shifts in rain. In some spots, long dry times are making springs dry sooner in the year, upsetting growing and forcing groups to count on deeper wells or brought water. In others, stronger storms overload underground drain, leading to floods that are more hard and less guessed than before. Because karst water moves quick through open paths, there is little cushion against extremes. A dry season can empty holds with startling speed, while a storm can flood fields in hours. These ups and downs, once season beats, are becoming more wild. Rising warmth adds another layer of stress. In high mountain karst spots, ice rivers that once fed limestone water stores are pulling back, cutting long-term supplies of meltwater. Ice caves that kept records of past weather for hundreds of years are melting away, erasing stores that knowers count on to get Earth's air past. In warm karst, hotter ways mixed with shifting rain are changing whole living webs. Plants and animals fitted to thin dirt and special water patterns now face spots that may no longer hold them. The very toughness that once marked karst living mix is being tested in ways growing never guessed. Visitor trips bring their own set of tests. Caves that were once quiet, safe spots now echo with the steps and voices of millions of visitors each year. Famous sites like Slovenia's Postojna Cave or Kentucky's Mammoth Cave pull vast crowds. And while this brings trade good, it also changes the underground spot. Made lighting boosts the growth of algae on tender shapes, a thing sometimes called lamp plants. The fizz gas breathed by visitors gently changes the cave air, while the heat from bodies and lights can upset steady warmth. Even careful handling cannot wipe the hit fully. The very act of opening these spaces to all changes their natural balance. Above ground, the towers and walls of Karst have become signs of pretty trips. The limestone points of Gillen, the misty bays of Halong, and the stone groves of Madagascar are snapped endlessly, their beauty shared across the globe. This fame, though, comes at a cost. Build of sleep spots, roads, and look platforms often scars the very lands visitors come to love. More footwalk wears trails, and careless visitors may leave marks or trash on shapes that took thousands of years to form. The odd is striking. The more people cheer the unique of Karst, the more weak it becomes under their gaze. Dirt stands for a quieter, but maybe more sneaky threat. Because water travels fast through Karst water stores, taints spread quick with little clean. Farm plant foods, bug killers, and work chemicals seep into gaps, reappearing miles away at springs that feed whole towns. Unlike in sandy water stores where dirt layers act as natural cleans, Karst offers little shield. Once dirtied, a water store can stay bad for years or even tens of years. In some cases, bad bits build in underground lakes or streams, threatening not only human health, but also the unique cave-living webs that count on fresh ways. City growth adds to these troubles. Growing cities often spread across karst ground, covering natural fill zones and changing drain. Roads, home builds, and works upset the tender waterways, sometimes rerouting underground flows in surprise ways. Stormwater wash carries oil, metals, and trash into gaps, while trash piles built on limestone can leak taints straight into water stores. The unseen self of Karst makes it easy to forget that the ground below is filled with paths and empty. A careless choice on top may echo through whole underground systems. Digging and cutting keep pushing on Karst too. Limestone stays a key raw stuff for cement, growing, and build. The taking way leaves scars that are often not fixable, removing walls and flats fully. In some places, cutting has broken unique karst features before they could be studied or safe. Bauxite digging, especially in warm karst, has changed lands, leaving behind pits and dirty waters. While these trades are musts to new economies, they often take heavy costs on living webs and groups. Yet, it is not all a tale of down. Knowing of karst's weakness has grown in recent tens of years, leading to stronger safes. UNESCO World Spots now guard some of the most famous karst spots, from China's South China Karst to the Scotian Caves in Slovenia. These safes limit cutting, rule trips, and help keep. In places like Austria, strict water safe zones around karst springs make sure water stores stay clean for groups to come. Knowing watch and group join have made it possible to balance use with keep, even if the balance stays tender. There are also cheering examples of lasting trips. Some caves limit visitor numbers or block to touchy rooms. Low-hit lighting cuts algae growth while guided walks teach visitors about the key of keep. Above ground, green trips push love of karst lands without the heavy build that harms them. By seeing these places not just as pulls, but as living systems, such efforts grow honor and care. Weatherfit is also taking root. Growers in karst spots are trying dry tough plants, rain catch, and dirt fix to deal with shifting ways. Knowers are mapping water stores in never-before detail using colors, feelers, and models to get water flows and weak spots. This knowing helps groups ready for floods and handle supplies better. Though tests stay big, The very surprise of Karst has pushed new think. Still, the over-theme is that Karst is under strain. These lands took millions of years to form, yet they can be harmed in just tens of years. The weighting of dripping water cannot race with the speed of push machines, weather shifts, or unchecked dirt. Once lost, a cave shape or water store cannot just be put back. The weakness of Karst is matched only by its key. The new pushes on Karst call thought on our link with the natural world. They ask if we can learn to value lands not just for what they give, but for what they are. Not replaceable records of Earth's past and homes of rare beauty. The test is to make sure that the same powers of human wonder and want that have brought us into Karst's depths do not also become the powers that erase them. In this changing world, Karst stands as both a gift and a warning. It gives water, wonder, and way of life hold, but it also shows how easily those gifts can be undone. The caves and walls remind us of time's waiting art, and the threats they face remind us that art can be weak. Whether these lands last as sources of spark or fall into warning tales depends on how we choose to act in the tens of years to come. Across the east half of the world, karst lands rise into shapes so special and famous that they have come to stand for whole lands and ways of life. From misty rivers lined with limestone towers to bays filled with green waters and scattered islands, these lands are right away known even to those who have never stepped in them. They are more than rock oddities. They're signs of self, sources of art spark and pulls for travelers seeking beauty that touches on the dream. Maybe the most cheered example is the karst of Guilin and Yangshuo in southern China. Here the Li River winds softly through a valley flanked by steep limestone towers. Their tops softened by mist and their slopes blanketed with bamboo groves and rice spots. These towers, known as fenglin, were formed over millions of years as water melted the around limestone, leaving behind lone spires. The result is a dreamlike wide view that has charmed singers of words, painters, and travelers for hundreds of years. Tang family singers wrote lines comparing the land to dragons and forever ones, while painters showed its shapes in ink washes that stressed not just its body beauty, but its spirit echo. Today, a trip down the Li River is a must for visitors to China, and the scene is so famous that it shows on the country's 20 yuan money note. Travel southeast from Guilin, and the wonder keeps in Vietnam's Halong Bay, one of the most known karst sea views in the world. Thousands of limestone islands and small bits rise boldly from the green waters of the Gulf of Tonkin, their walls draped in thick greens. Each island is different. Some are sharp and pointy, others rounded and soft, some hollowed into caves with vast rooms filled with stalactites. Local tales tell of dragons that came down to guard the Vietnamese folks, their tails carving the valleys and their bodies dropping jewels that became the islands. Whether seen from a boat slipping among the pillars or from a high spot at dawn, the bay gives an otherworld calm as though it were a land hanging between sea and sky. Halong Bay has been a UNESCO World Spot since 1994, known for both its natural beauty and its rock meaning. Not far away in Laos lies another karst treasure, the Plain of Jars. Though not as eye-bold as towering peaks or ocean bays, it is no less puzzling. Here, thousands of big stone jars, some weighing several tons, are scattered across rolling karst flats. Their starts are still argued. Some say they were death holders for Iron Age folks, while others think they were used for food hold or making rice wine. Whatever their job, the jars give the land and puzzle feel, blending human past with rock back. The karst hills around the plain gave stone for carving, while caves nearby show proof of old burials. The Plain of Jars shows how karst lands often twist with human ways in paths that fight easy explain. Further south, the karst shapes of Phang Nga Bay in Thailand give another breathtaking example. Rising from blue-green waters, the limestone islands are topped with greens and pierced with sea caves and still pools. James Bond Island, once known as Koh Tapu, became world famous after showing in the 1974 film The Man with the Golden Gun. Yet the bay is more than a movie back. It is a living system where mangroves, coral homes, and sea life live with towering walls and hidden coves. Kayak folks slip through narrow tunnels to find secret pools, while fish folks keep customs that go back hundreds of years. The karst here is as much a home as it is a show, a reminder that these bold shapes are living lands, not just picture cards. In Cambodia, the karst hills of Kampot and Kep are dotted with caves that hold Buddhist holy spots, turning natural empty into sacred spaces. Local tales and prayways fill these lands with spirit meaning. Some caves are dressed with carvings of Hindu gods left from the Khmer Empire's touch, while others host statues of the Buddha ringed by smokesticks and gifts. The blending of karst rocks with way-of-life layers is a repeating theme across Asia, where caves and springs often become spots of giving. Indonesia, too, boasts amazing karst grounds, especially in the Raja Ampat Islands of West Papua. There, hundreds of limestone small bits dot blue-green seas, forming a maze of still pools, walls, and hidden coves. This sea view is not only eye-stunning, but also life-rich, part of the coral triangle, the most mixed sea-living web on Earth. The mix of karst top and coral homes makes a double wonder, a land and sea patch that holds amazing living mix. For local groups, these islands give fish, shield, and way-of-life meaning, while for travelers, they stand for one of the planet's last, fairly untouched dream spots. Farther north, Japan offers its own unique karst lands. Akiyoshi-dai in Yamaguchi area is the country's largest karst flat, a rolling field dotted with limestone points that look like scattered marks. Below lies Akiyoshi-do Cave, one of Japan's longest, with vast rooms and underground rivers. The flat and cave together show the mix of karst, from wind-swept grass above to dripping stone halls below. Japanese ways have long found songs in such differences, and Akiyoshi-dai has sparked both knowing study and art thought. Another special spot is Jeju Island in South Korea, famous for its lava tubes, but also home to striking limestone walls along its coasts. While Fire Mountain rather than classic limestone karst rules, the mix between rocks and ways mirrors patterns seen elsewhere. The island's caves have been used for shield, hold, and custom, showing again how below-ground features become woven into human life. Across the east half of the world, what unites these lands is their two self. They are both body shapes carved by water-melting stone and way-of-life marks shaped by story, art, and human use. The peaks of Guilin are not just limestone towers, they are brushstrokes in Chinese drawing. The islands of Halong Bay are not just left from melting, they are dragons turned to stone. The caves of Cambodia are not just voids in rock, they are spots of belief. Each famous karst land also tells a tale of time. The towers of Guilin took millions of years to form, yet they became signs of Chinese art in just a few hundreds. The islands of Halong Bay are the make of slow wear, yet they are also the back for legends born in a single telling. The Plain of Jars links natural stone with human making, a puzzle that lasts through thousands of years. It teaches us that lands can be both old and now, rock and way of life, quiet and yet filled with voices. These East examples remind us that Karst is not just a knowing group. It is also a source of wonder, spark, and self. To glide through Halong Bay at dawn, or stand among the peaks of Gillen, is to feel the weight of deep time and the lightness of human dreams all at once. They are lands of stone and quiet, but also of songs and tales, living proofs to the team between Earth's slow art and people's endless making. In the West world, karst lands spread across big lands, shaping valleys, mountains, and coastlines into scenes as bold as any in the East. From the rough limestone highs of the Balkans to the wide cave webs of North America, these lands show rocks at its most amazing. They have sparked lookers, tested growers, and drawn countless visitors into their depths. Though the shapes are like sinkholes, towers, caves, and springs, each spot has stamped its own self onto the stone. The very word karst comes from the West Balkans, from the German fit of Kras, a limestone flat that stretches across parts of Slovenia and Italy. Here, the main features of karst are written big across the land. The flat is dotted with sinkholes, caves, and disappearing rivers, all of which have pulled natural knowers for hundreds of years. The Scotian Caves, now a UNESCO World Spot, show the splendor of the spot with an underground deep cut by the Rika River, plunging through huge rooms. Standing inside, one feels small by size, as if nature had hollowed a big hall and left the music to the roaring river. This land gave knowing not just a name, but also a book example of how water can turn stone into mazes of amazing beauty. Further into the Balkans, the Dinaric Alps offer some of the most eye-catching karst ground in Europe. Towering limestone ridges rise above Poljas, those great flat dips that fill with water in wet seasons and dry to rich farmland in summer. Villages have long held to the edges of these basins, living in beat with the surprise floods. Caves here are not only natural wonders, but also way-of-life marks. The Vjetranica cave in Bosnia, one of the largest in the spot, holds both dig finds and rare kinds found nowhere else on Earth, such as the olm, a pale salamander that has fitted to life fully underground. In the Dinaric karst, knowing, ways, and living are bound in a single land. Westward, the Alps themselves hold wide karst systems hidden under their snowy peaks. Beneath the bold ridge lines of Austria and Switzerland lie cave systems that stretch for hundreds of kilometers. The Dachstein area of Austria boasts ice caves where frozen shapes glitter in light alongside mammoth caverns, where underground rivers cut through stone. The Mammoth or Mammoth Cave of Dachstein lives up to its name with vast halls that dwarf human visitors. High-height karst is especially pulling because snow melt and ice rivers feed water into these systems, making both steady and weak. As ice rivers pull back under new warming, the waterways of alpine karst is shifting, threatening both living webs and water supplies. Yet the pull stays strong. Brave folks and knowers alike keep looking these below realms, mapping spaces that feel as strange as the top of another world. Across the ocean, North America offers karst lands of huge size. Kentucky's Mammoth Cave is the clear giant, the longest known cave system on the planet. With more than 600 kilometers of paths mapped and still more waiting find, early Native Americans looked parts of this vast web thousands of years ago, leaving behind lights and made things. In the 1900s, the cave became a spot of trips and even knowing study, where the unique fits of cave life were first recorded. Today, Mammoth Cave National Park pulls visitors from around the world who wonder at the twisting halls, massive rooms and tender shapes that took thousands of years to form. It is both a rock treasure and a way-of-life mark, bodying the American pull with big and size. Florida, too, is marked by karst, though in a very different shape. The state's holy limestone base is filled with sinkholes and water stores, shaping not only the natural land but also daily life. The Florida water store is one of the largest in the world, giving water to millions across several states. At the same time, the always-there risk of sinkholes reminds dwellers that the ground below is not as solid as it seems. Whole lakes have formed in a night when the earth fell, swallowing water and land in bold way. For Floridians, karst is both giver and threat, a reminder of the uneasy balance between count and risk. In the American Southwest, Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico show rooms so large they could hold whole city blocks, dressed with shapes that look like drapes, lights, and frozen waterfalls. The big room, the Cavern Center, is one of the largest underground rooms in the world, sparking wonder with its size and fancy. Long before it became a national park, these caves were known to First Peoples who saw them with honor. Today, they are not only goals for visitors, but also homes for vast bat groups, whose night flights make natural shows as bold as the caves themselves. Europe's West Karst includes just as famous sites. In France, the Causses and Cévennes are limestone flats cut by deep cuts, their walls and caves central to both natural beauty and human past. The Grotte de Paderac, a bold sinkhole that leads into a boatable underground river, has drawn visitors since the 1900s. Dropping into its depths, one meets a world of stalactites, underground lakes, and echoing paths, all shaped by the waiting steady of water. The French land shows the play of top and below, where green valleys and animal keep life live with hidden caverns of splendor. Further north, Ireland's Burren shows a different face of karst. Here the top itself is the show. A gray pavement of bare limestone slabs cracked into shape patterns by weather. Between the gaps grow rare plants, making a patch of life in what at first seems bare. The Burren has long pulled natural knowers and singers of words alike, its stark beauty sparking links to moonlands. Below the rocky pavement lie caves, underground rivers, and hidden rooms. But even the top alone catches the dream with its simple grace. In Spain, the Picos de Europa and Sierra de Grazalema hold bold karst shapes that shape local customs. Springs give water to villages perched on rocky slopes, while caves house dig remains that trace human past back tens of thousands of years. The Cueva de Altamira's old-time drawings, where before history folks painted animals deep underground. As in France, the caves are both natural wonders and way-of-life stores, holding proof of early making in spaces carved by natural powers. What unites these West examples is their mix, from the vast of Mammoth Cave to the tender top patterns of the Burren, from the flooded purlieus of the Balkans to the frozen caverns of the Alps. Karst shows in shapes as varied as the ways that live among them. Each land tells a tale of time, water, and stone, but also of human smart and dream. They are places of wonder and danger, of spark and living, of helps and risks. Karst in the West may not always seem as strange as the tower lands of Asia. Yet it holds its own splendor. It is found in the rolling limestone hills of England, the walls of the Adriatic, the flats of Hungary, and the highs of Mexico. It has been home to early humans, fight grounds for armies, safe for lone prey folks, and work spots for knowers. The variety is as endless as the paths below the top. These lands remind us that karst is not stuck to one way or one big land. It is a world thing linking the Alps with Appalachia, the Balkans with the Burren. Each famous site is a chapter in a much larger tale. The tale of how water, waiting and steady, can carve worlds both pretty and tricky, and how humans, equally waiting and steady, have learned to live among them. Not all karst lands call out with soaring towers or bold sinkholes. Some lie hidden in far corners of the world, covered by ice, sunk beneath the sea, or disguised in settings where few expect to find them. These far or unusual forms of karst remind us that the mixing of water and limestone is not limited by weather or place. Where meltable rock meets flowing water, strange and pretty features can rise even in the most unlikely spots. Think of the icy wild of the Arctic. At first look, one might not dream karst thriving in such frozen realms. Yet polar karst lives, shaped not only by water, but by ice and snow. In Greenland and parts of Arctic Canada, limestone outcrops are filled with caves and sinkholes, many filled with ice that has stayed steady for hundreds of years. Meltwater from ice rivers carves channels through the base rock, sometimes vanishing into moulins, deep shafts that funnel water straight down into the depths of the ice and rock below. These features make lands where ice study and karst meet, a mixed spot of stone, ice, and water in constant talk. The tests of looking such places are huge, but they show how karst ways keep even in spots ruled by frozen extremes. Antarctica, too, holds surprises. Beneath its vast ice sheets, limestone shapes live, left of ancient seas that once covered the land. Though hidden under cline of ice, knowers think that karst ways may still be at work as meltwater drips down and mixes with the buried base. These unseen lands are some of the least reachable on Earth, yet they hint at the everywhere of karst. Even in the coldest, most far places, the quiet mixing of water and carbonate stone keeps. Shift from polar extremes to warm seas, and another hidden kind comes, underwater karst. Beneath the world's oceans lie countless caves, paths, and sinkholes that started life on dry land before sea levels rose. During ice ages, when seas were far lower, rainwater carved caves into bare limestone. When the oceans came back, these caves flooded, becoming sunk mazes of amazing beauty. The Bahamas are famous for blue holes, deep round sinkholes filled with seawater that plunge into the earth like straight tunnels. Some go for hundreds of meters, linking to vast underwater cave webs. Divers looking these blue holes meet dream worlds of still water, unusual mixing, and unique creatures. Stalactites and stalagmites now under show that these caves once echoed with dripping water long before the seas claimed them. Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula also boasts amazing underwater karst, its cenotes already striking at the top link to a huge web of sunk caves stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Systems like Sac Acton and Oxbel Howe rank among the longest underwater cave webs ever found. Looking them is both thrilling and risky as divers thread their way through paths dressed with shapes that predate the flooding. These underwater realms keep proof of before-history animals, ancient weather shifts, and even human bits, making them both knowing treasure holds and places of wonder. Karst is not stuck to stone and seawater. In parts of the world, gypsum and salt, rocks that melt even faster than limestone, make their own kinds of karstlands. These forms are often overlooked, hidden in dry spots or beneath layers of more known rocks. In Spain's Sorbus Basin, gypsum karst has made a maze of caves lined with glittering crystals. In Iran, salt karst makes bold sinkholes and caves where the base itself flows and reshapes over short times. These hidden forms of karst remind us that the happening's broader than limestone alone, covering any rock that gives to the waiting work of water. Even deserts can hold unexpected karst features. In the Sahara, limestone flats contain caves and sinkholes, carved during wetter weather times long ago. Today, many lie sleeping, their doors buried by sand or hidden in bare lands. Yet they hold clues to ancient water systems that once held lakes, rivers, and human groups. These old karst systems act as time boxes, keeping proof of past weather in places where water now seems undreamable. In Australia, far karst lands add another twist. The Nullarbor Plain, one of the largest limestone platforms on Earth, is so flat and dry that its caves often stay hidden until one stumbles on them. Beneath the plain, though, lie some of the world's most wide cave systems, many still being looked. Some hold vast underground lakes with water so clear that divers seem to float in air. The alone of the Nullarbor has saved these systems from heavy use, leaving them fresh examples of how karst can grow even in spots that look outwardly bare. Hidden karst also happens beneath woods and grasslands where top signs may be gentle or fully gone. In parts of Eastern Europe, caves stretch for kilometers under grow fields. They're being unthought until a sinkhole opens or a well hits an underground empty. Like in North America's middle, huge cave webs lie quietly beneath farm land and towns, unseen unless one goes down into them. These hidden lands remind us that karst is often more wide than we know, its true size hidden beneath normal tops. Far karst is not just a matter of land place. It is also a matter of reach. Many underwater caves stay unlooked simply because diving to such depth is risky. Polar karst is hard to study due to extreme waves, while desert karst may be buried beneath shifting sand. Even in well-peopled spots, the full stretch of underground webs is rarely mapped. For knowers, these places are edges as hard as outer space, offering finds with every trip, but asking skill and caution. What unites all these hidden kinds is their power to surprise. Karst is often dreamed as something belonging to lush valleys or bold walls, but in truth, it fits to almost any setting. Whether under ice, sea, or desert, it keeps its quiet work, carving empty, shaping paths and storing water. These far lands remind us that Earth's rocks is not stuck to what we see on top. Much lies hidden, waiting to be uncovered. For those who do look them, the feel is often changing. Divers coming from a blue hole speak of floating through another world where quiet and still rule. Knowers studying polar karst describe the eerie beauty of ice-choked caves that sparkle in light. Brave folks crossing the Nullarbor recall the thrill of finding lakes hidden far beneath a dry flat. Each meet is a reminder that the most amazing places are often those least expected. In the grand tale of karst, these far or hidden kinds serve as chapters of pull. They stretch the meaning of what karst can be, proving that the swap of water and meltable rock is not limited by weather or place. They also remind us that wonder often lies in the unseen, the overlooked, and the hard to reach. To dream karst only in its most famous shapes is to miss much of its richness. The world beneath ice sheets under desert sands or within the sea holds lands every bit as amazing as the towers of Gillen or the caves of Kentucky. Lands that stay quiet, waiting for fine. Karst lands are not only body spaces, but also vast walls for human dreams. The hidden rivers, sudden empty and echoing rooms call thought, and deeper meaning in ways that softer grounds rarely do. Where soft plains wake comfort and steady, and rich valleys suggest plenty, karst hints at puzzle, not sure, and the unseen. It is little wonder that across ways and hundreds of years these lands have been woven into signs, think, and art thought. At the most close level, caves and karst have long stood for the unknown. They are dark, quiet, and often seeming endless, traits that lend easy to deeper meaning. Plato's famous tale of the cave is maybe the best-known think use of below-ground pictures. For him, the cave was not just a body space, but a deeper for not knowing, where folks mistake shadows for real until they come into the light of knowing. Though Plato's cave was not tied to a special karst spot, the pictures mirror the real human feel of going underground where seeing is limited and truth seems hard to catch. The deeper rings just because caves wake such lost feel. Karst also lends to thoughts on time. Stalactites and stalagmites grow at a pace barely seeable in a human life. Yet in their slow, drip-by-drip build, they form wonderful halls of stone. To stand in a karst cavern is to face time on a rock scale, time that makes human, past small. Writers and thinkers have often drawn on this picture to think on waiting, lasting, and the ends of human sea. A single drop of water is nothing, but over thousands of years it carves lands. The deeper is hard to resist. Steady, however small, remakes the world. The vanishing rivers of karst also wake the dream. A river that drops underground only to come back elsewhere suggests trips hidden from sight, changes in secret, or the idea that what goes is not lost, but just unseen. Such pictures have been used in books and old tales to stand for the soul's trip, hidden feels, or the puzzles of fate. The Ljubljanica River in Slovenia, famous for vanishing and coming back many times, became a strong sign in local custom, its wild path like to the not sure of life. In songs, disappearing rivers often stand for held feels or hidden truths that at last come up again. Sinkholes with their sudden falls, body weakness, and not forever. For many, they are sharp reminders that the ground below us is never fully safe. Deeper, they have been used to describe moments when sure vanishes, when the builds of life fall surprise. Thinkers and singers alike have liked them to the human way, outward steady, yet always carrying the chance of quick change. In this way, karst lands mere being truths. That steady is often a trick, and that the unseen has the power to change our lives boldly. Tower karst, on the other hand, calls different signs. The lone limestone peaks of Guilin or Halong Bay are often like to watchers, guards rising from the earth. In art and books, they are signs of toughness, standing alone while the softer stone around is worn away. Their alone can also stand for being alone or spirit clear. The idea that true strength comes not from blending, but from lasting alone. Painters and singers in China saw them as places where the edge between earth and sky blurred, making them natural, deeper for beyond and balance. Karst caves have also been deeply tied to the idea of the world below in story and dream. To step into their depths is to go down into realms beyond life, a theme found from Greek Hades to Maya Xibalba. The cave mouth is often seen as an edge, a in-between space where the world of living touches that of the dead or the divine. Even outside of clear prey spots, writers have drawn on caves as signs of inner trips, looks of the below thought, the unknown parts of self, or the tests one must face to reach change. Carl Jung, for instance, often described caves as old shapes standing for the not-thought mind. In books, karst has often served as a back for thought on puzzle and wonder. Romantic singers love describing cavernous, empty, and below-ground rivers as body of the grand. Those moments when beauty and fear teem to overwhelm the senses. For them, standing at the door of a vast cave or looking into a yawning sinkhole was to face nature's power and one's own small. This sense of wonder bordering on fear became a base of romantic think, and Karst gave the perfect stuff show of it. Karst's role in Dream is not stuck to grand deeper. It has also been used sign-wise in more close ways. The slow growth of calcite shapes has been like to the build of memory. The way feels drip one by one into the rooms of the mind until they form something lasting. Underground rivers have been like to below-thought thoughts flowing unseen until they come in dreams or sudden seas. Even the strange pale creatures of caves have entered way-of-life signs standing for fit, hidden toughness, or the power to grow in dark. Artists, too, have long found in Karst a ready source of deeper. The play of light and shadow in caves mirrors the play of clear and blur in human thought. The sharp differences of tower karst lands suggest strength amidst weakness. The fields of limestone, rough yet shaped, wake ideas of lasting shaped by hard. Drawers have borrowed these themes, showing them in stone, while snap-takers love in the test of catching vast underground rooms in a single frame, balancing light and dark as careful as singers balance words. Thinkwise, Karst prompts thought on what is hidden versus what is shown. Much of the karst world lies underground, unseen to casual look. What we see on top, a hill, a spring, a sinkhole, is only part of a vast, hidden system. This mirrors human being in countless ways. The top of our lives is only the seen bit, while most of our thoughts, feels, and pasts stay hidden. The deeper of karst, as the unseen depths of the mind or of group, is one that comes again and again. Waywise, karst lands often sign edges and changes. The cave mouth is a gate, the sinkhole a break, the spring a sudden show. These signs show in story, in art, and in own thought. They remind us that life itself is full of edges, moments where the known ends and the unknown starts. The lasting pull with karst is not only about the shapes of stone, but about the ideas they call change, not forever, hidden depth, and the play of weakness and toughness. In all these ways, karst serves as a mirror for human dream. It gives us deeper for waiting and fall, for hidden trips and sudden shows, for alone and beyond. Whether carved into Think by Plato, painted into scrolls by Chinese artists, or woven into local old tales by villagers who lived above disappearing rivers, karst has always been more than rocks. It has been a source of signs as deep and mixed as the caves themselves. To think on karst is to think on ourselves, our fears of not steady, our wonder at times vast, our honor for puzzle, and our want to find meaning in lands that both keep and unsettle us. These lands of stone and quiet, carved by water's waiting hand, keep speaking not only to knowing but also to the dream, reminding us that every cavern, every sinkhole, every lone tower is also a deeper waiting to be read. The lands of karst, shaped by the slow drip of water and the quiet, steady of mixing, have already lasted for millions of years. Towers of limestone have risen as softer rock around them wore away. Vast caverns have stretched into dark beneath hills and valleys, and rivers have vanished into the earth, only to come back elsewhere in surprise places. If they have lived so long, it may be tempting to dream that they will keep unchanged far into the future. Yet the hundreds of years to come will bring both lasting and change. For these lands are not frozen in time. They are lively, weak, and always growing, and they will meet new tests in the age of people. One of the closest powers shaping their future is weather change. Changed rain patterns will touch karst waterways deeply. In some places, heavier rains will overload underground paths, making more often floods in valleys and polges. Growers who once counted on sure cycles may find the beat shifting, their fields covered or dry without hint. In other spots, long dry will drain water stores, quieting springs that have flowed for hundreds of years. Water, always the maker of karst, will keep shaping, but its patterns will grow less guess, making not sure for both lands and the folks who count on them. Ice rivers, which feed many high-height karst systems, are pulling back fast. As they vanish, the flow of meltwater into alpine caves and water stores will lessen, changing underground rivers that have run for thousands of years. Ice caves with their shining frozen stalactites are already shrinking, erasing natural stores of past weather in the way. The loss is not only eye, but knowing, for these caves store records of air past locked in ice. The karst of the high mountains, once fed by ice river beats, will be remade as warming changes the balance of water, stone, and time. Coast karst will face rising seas. Places like Halong Bay in Vietnam or the limestone islands of the seaside may last higher tides and stronger storms. Some caves that are now open to visitors could be flooded, their rooms kept only for divers willing to look underwater. New blue holes and sunk cave systems may form as sea levels rise more, growing the world of underwater karst. Yet wear from waves mixed with human push from trips and build may also hurry the fall of tender shapes. The coastlines of karst will keep changing, but not always soft. City spread poses another layer of risk. As cities grow, they often spread over karst ground, pulled by springs and flat highs. Yet building on such land is shaky. Sinkholes can swallow builds in a night, while underground empty hurt bases. Builders will no doubt find ways to spot and steady karst below build sites, but the pull will stay. The question is not if cities can build on karst, but if they can do so lasting, balancing the wants of new life with the weak of stone. The future of karst will also be shaped by how we treat its hidden waters. Karst water stores are among the most key freshwater helps in the world. Yet they are famously weak. Dirt spreads fast through their open paths, and overpulling can fall underground systems. In the coming hundreds, as water little becomes more pressing worldwide, karst water stores will be both treasure and pull. Safe them will need look ahead, careful handle, and honor for nature's ends. Where such care is done, karst waters may keep millions. Where it is skipped, water stores may fail, leaving once growing spots dry. Trips will stay both a gift and a test. Caves and walls will keep pulling visitors eager to feel the dream beauty of karst for real. Tools may make looking easier with lights, walkways, and even dream trips growing reach. Yet with every visitor comes hit. The gentle warming of breath, the growth of algae and made light, the wear of countless steps. Future handle may count on stricter rules, turning access or advanced systems to keep tender shapes. Maybe some of the most weak caves will be closed fully, their beauty left to quiet again. Others may hug controlled visits, turning teaching into safe by showing visitors the weakness as well as the wonder. Yet while human dew looms large, natural ways will not stop. Towers will break, sinkholes will form, and underground rivers will carve new paths. In rock terms, whole valleys may fall into vast dolines, while new polges appear in spots now unscarred. In coast zones, limestone walls will pull back steady under the hit of waves. In dry lands, sleeping karst may wake during wet weather cycles, restarting caves that have been dry for thousands of years. These changes will unfold slow on the scale of human life, but swift on the scale of rocks, keeping the endless talk between water and stone. Some changes will be gentle, yet deep. A spring that has flowed since old times may dry. A cave shape that has glittered for thousands of years may fall in a flash. Over the hundreds, such small shifts will build, remaking the lands we know today into shapes that would be strange to future groups. And yet, at the same time, much will stay known. The great towers of Gillen, the vast of Mammoth Cave, the glittering cenotes of the Yucatan. These features will last, though may be different, worn or worn. Their basic splendor will stay. The dream of the future will also be touched by these lands. As they change, so too will the tales told about them. Legends may grow to mirror new truths. Springs once holy may be remembered only in tales of their gone, while new sinkholes may spark fresh stories of gods or spirits. Books, art, and think will keep drawing from Karst's deeper, its hidden depths and sudden falls lending to thought on not sure, toughness and time. Just as Plato once used a cave to explain knowing, thinkers of the future may use Karst to show people's link with the unseen or the surprise. Tools may even grow our reach to Karst in ways undreamed. Below-ground mapping using flyers and advanced feelers could show whole webs that stay hidden today. Dream Real might let folks look fragile caves without stepping inside them, keeping tender living webs while still sharing their beauty. Knowers may find new kinds fitted to dark or new mixing ways happening in the depths of limestone caverns. The future of Karst is not only about wear and fall, but also about fine, as these lands keep surprising us. The last fate of Karst depends on a balance, the natural steady of rocks set against the speeding pace of human change. Water will keep melting stone no matter what we do. Towers will rise and fall, caverns will open and close, and rivers will vanish and come back. That much is sure. What stays not sure is how human choices will speed, break, or reroute these ways. With honor and care, Karst can last as a source of beauty, spark, and life-giving water. With skip, it can be harmed beyond mend, its tender systems falling in tens of years rather than thousands. Looking forward, Karst lands remind us of lasting, weakness, and the link of nature and ways. They're a proof to the power of small powers. Drops of water, bits of dirt, roots of plants, to shape whole worlds over time. They're also a reminder of our own role in shaping the future, whether through care or use. The hundreds to come will not erase Karst, but they will write new chapters in its tale, chapters in which people play a big role. In the end, Karst will stay lands of stone and quiet, but also of change and new. They will keep sparking wonder, testing living and waking dream, just as they have for thousands of years. Whether they last as treasures of the natural world or as warnings of weakness depends on us. The question for the future is simple but deep. Will we learn to live with Karst in balance? Or will we leave behind scars that time itself cannot fully heal? Quiet has a land of its own. Nowhere is this clearer than in the realms of stone, where water has hollowed rooms, carved away valleys, and left behind lands that call quiet thought. Karst, with its hidden rivers, sudden sinkholes, and towers rising against the sky, is more than a body happening. It is a land of gone, of spaces shaped as much by what has been taken as by what stays. To walk through such a place is to listen to the words of stillness, to be reminded that empty has shape, and that quiet can be as strong as sound. These lands born of melting seem always to hold their breath. A sinkhole does not yell as it opens, though the fall may be huge. Underground rivers rush unseen, their song muffled by rock. Stalactites grow in full quiet, adding unseen layers one drop at a time. In such places, one becomes aware of time as something vast and waiting, measured not in days or years, but in thousands of years. Quiet here is not just the gone of noise. It is the being of time itself, packed into stone and water. Karst teaches an odd that weakness and toughness live together. Limestone is easily melted, yielding to even weakly sour rain. Yet the builds that form are lasting. Towers that outlive mountains of harder rock, caves that last for millions of years. This, too, is echoed in human life. Our own lives, too, are tender, shaped by countless small touches. Yet what lasts from them, memory, art, ideas, can stay long beyond our bodies. The quiet of Karst becomes a mirror showing the pull between easy hurt and lasting. The alone of these lands has always drawn the human spirit toward thought. Old peoples place their stories in caves and springs, dreaming them as doors to worlds below or realms of gods. Artists and singers saw in their shadows deeper for puzzle and beyond. Today, visitors still enter Karst lands seeking more than show. They are moved by the hush of vast rooms, the sudden stillness of a wall rising above mist, the quiet bubble of a spring in the wood. Quiet here is not empty but full, a being that boosts thought and dream. Even the dangers of Karst speak in whispers rather than roars. Floodwaters rise quietly underground before bursting into springs. Dirt seeps unseen into water stores, spreading without mark. Sinking creeps slowly, bases drooping before fall. The risks remind us that quiet can trick, hiding powers at work just beyond sea. Yet even these dangers deepen the sense of honor such lands command. To live in Karst country is to live with small feel, knowing that the unseen shapes the top, and that quiet is never truly still. Thinkers and singers have long leaned on caves as deeper for the hidden and the unknown, but in Karst, the deeper grows to the whole land. The top may look normal, a meadow, a wood, a hillside, but below lies a fancy, unseen world. What looks simple hides fancy just as in people or groups. The land of quiet asks us to look deeper to know that what is not seen may be just as key as what is on the top. This trait of hiding makes Karst lands uniquely thinkful. To stand at the door of a vast cavern or to float across a still Karst lake is to feel the weight of what cannot be seen. The hidden rivers and rooms speak not through noise but through being, reminding us that real goes beyond sea. In an age filled with constant noise and pull-away, Karst calls stillness, offering spaces where quiet itself becomes a guide. Water, the shaper of Karst, also speaks in soft tones. A single droplet falling from a stalactite echoes like a bell in a room that has stood silent for thousands of years. A spring bubbling at the edge of a forest murmurs of trips through stone, unseen but real. Rivers that vanish underground remind us that life is filled with go-aways, but also with comebacks, the return of what was thought lost. The quiet of water in Karst is not full, but beat-like, a reminder that even in stillness, change is always. The human dream has always answered to these traits. From Plato's tale of the cave to Chinese singers writing of misty limestone towers, Karst has been a wall for thinking about truth, time, and change. In the New World, knowers trace underground rivers with colors and feelers. Lookers map vast caverns. And safe folks work to guard weak water stores. Yet below all the measures and handle, the lasting feel stays the same. These are lands where quiet rules, and in that quiet we find meaning. There is also a lesson of small feel in the land of quiet. Karst is surprise. Sinkholes open where none were guessed. Springs shift way without hint. Caves fall after standing for long times. These events remind us that quiet is not safe, that power often lies unseen. At the same time, they remind us that much of what keeps life is hidden. Karst water stores, though unseen, give water to hundreds of millions of folks. The unseen can feed as much as it can threaten. Looking forward, these lands will keep changing. Weather shifts may quiet some springs and wake others. Rising seas will flood coast caves, making new underwater worlds. Towers may break while new empty form. Yet through it all, the land of quiet will last. It is not a still quiet, but a living one, shaped by time and change. For those who seek thought, Karst will always offer places where the earth seems to pause, where sound is replaced by being, and where quiet becomes its own land. To think on Karst is to think on waiting. Every stalactite is a lesson in steady, every vanished river a reminder of not forever. The quiet of stone is the quiet of deep time, calling us to think our place within it. Human past is but a moment next to the ages recorded in limestone layers. Yet in that moment we painted caves, told tales, and drawn meaning from the quiet of these places. The land of quiet is not just natural, but way of life, linking the lasting of stone with the making of the human spirit. In the end, Karst lands stay both puzzle and teacher. They show us that empty can be shape, that quiet can be deep, and that weakness and toughness are two sides of the same stone. They remind us that beauty often lies not in noise or show, but in waiting, in shadow, and in the quiet steady of water over time. To step into these lands is to step into a world where quiet rules, and to know that quiet has a land as rich and meaningful as any sound. As we come to the end of this long strolling through lands of stone and quiet, it feels right to go back to the soft pace with which we started. Karst, with all its puzzles, risks, and wonders, is not a tale that ends clean. It is a tale still unfolding, one that stretches back into deep time and forward into futures we cannot yet see. What we have followed together is only part of its trip: the waiting of water, the weakness of limestone, the making of human dream, and the lasting quiet that ties them all. There is something small-making in knowing that these lands were here long before us and will last long after. The towers of Gilin, the vast rooms of Mammoth Cave, the glittering cenotes of the Yucatan. Each is a moment in a way that began millions of years ago. They remind us that change can be slow yet unstoppable, and that the world below our feet is never truly set. Just as rivers carve their way through stone, time carves its way through groups, remaking them quietly and always. Karst is in many ways a land of waiting. Every stalactite is a reminder that beauty is built one drop at a time, unseen until thousands of years have passed. Every sinkhole is proof that even steady has ends, that forever is a trick, and every underground river is a deeper for the unseen powers that keep us, flowing quietly out of sight, but must to life. To spend time with Karst is to spend time with waiting, with ways that are larger than ourselves and beats that will keep whether we notice or not. There is also a quiet giving to these lands. Despite their surprise, they have given people water, shield, and spark. Springs from Karst water stores have eased the thirst of countless groups. Caves have served as hide in times of danger, And limestone has built our cities and marks. Artists have turned their outlines into songs, and tale-tellers have placed their stories in the shadows of their rooms. The gifts of Karst are not loud or showy. They are gentle, like the drip of water in a cave. Yet they are no less deep for their gentle. What makes Karst specially moving is its quiet. In a world filled with always noise, Karst calls stillness. It reminds us that not all lands shout their being. Some whisper, some hide more than they show. Some teach us that what is unseen can be just as key as what is on the surface. The quiet of Karst is not empty but full of time, full of change, full of meaning. To listen to that quiet is to hear something deeper than sound. And maybe this is why Karst lasts not just in body but in feel. It has a way of settling into the dream, of staying with those who feel it. A traveler who floats down the Lee River, who peers into the depths of a cenote, or who stands in the echoing dark of a great cavern, rarely forgets the feel. It is not only the sight that stays, but the sense of size, of puzzle, of link to something older and larger than self. Karst lands last not only in stone, but in memory. When we think on these lands, we also think on ourselves. The steady of water against stone is not so different from the steady of human hope or making. The hidden rooms of caves mirror the hidden depths of thought and feel. The sudden fall of a sinkhole shows the weakness of our own builds, the way change can come without hint. In this sense, Karst is more than rocks. It is think written into the land, an endless reminder of waiting, not forever, and toughness. Looking toward the future, the question is not if Karst will live, but in what shape. Towers may break, caves may flood, springs may shift, but the ways that made them will keep. Water will keep moving through stone, carving, melting, remaking. Karst will last, though maybe different than it does today. And in that lasting lies comfort. The earth is never still, yet its beats keep. As we part from this adventure, it is worth carrying with us a sense of that beat. Just as lands of stone are shaped by water drop by drop, so too are our own lives shaped by small, waiting powers. We often think of change as sudden, bold, and noisy, but in truth, much of what changes us happens quietly, almost unseen, until we look back and see that we too have been remade by time. The land of quiet is not stuck to the earth. It is written in us as well. There is comfort in letting our thoughts float with that knowing. Dream your mind as a river, sometimes rushing, sometimes vanishing underground, sometimes coming back brighter and stronger. Dream your memories as stalactites, built slowly over time, until they make rooms rich with tale. Dream your tests as limestone, seeming solid, yet always open to change when steady is used. In this way, the deeper of Karst become friends, guiding thoughts in quiet moments. At night, when the world grows still, it is easy to picture yourself among these lands. Maybe you stand at the edge of a sinkhole, gazing into shadow. Maybe you walk through a cavern, where each drip of water marks the pass of hundreds of years. Maybe you float across a river valley at dawn, towers rising through the mist. In each picture, the theme is the same: quiet, waiting, change. These are the gifts of Karst, both to the earth and to the dream. So as you settle into rest, let your thoughts wander as rivers do, vanishing and coming back, carving gentle paths through the lands of your own mind. Let them slow like the drip of water that forms a stalactite, each one adding a quiet layer to the rooms of memory. Let them float like mist around limestone peaks, melting into calm. In this way, the tale of Karst becomes a tale of rest, a reminder that quiet itself can be keeping. Karst has no last chapter. Its tale is always going, written in stone and water across timescales, longer than our own. But tonight, as our adventure comes to a close, we can pause here in this land of quiet and simply listen. The caves will keep echoing. The rivers will keep flowing. The towers will keep rising and falling. And we, for a moment, can be still within it. May these lands linger with you not as noise, but as calm, lasting beings that remind us of waiting, of weakness, and of toughness. And as you float now into sleep, may your dreams be shaped as gently as stone is shaped by water, slowly, quietly, beautifully across the land of quiet.